Chapter 1479. It wasn't that Jiang Chun didn't want to correct the ranking, but his spiritual power was too weak. After walking out of the famed tower, he bumped into Bai Xiaolan. Jiang Chen's spiritual power was overused, and his head was dizzy. He was seeing double when he saw Bai Xiaolan, and he didn't even have the strength to speak. Therefore, he didn't even greet her and walked unsteadily toward his residence. "Oh, why is your spiritual power so weak?" Bai Xiaolan obviously knew what was wrong with Jiang Chun. After all, several senior and junior brothers had entered the famed tower before, and they all came out like this. Jiang Chun still didn't speak. His footsteps were light, and he almost couldn't stand still. Although Bai Xiaolan had a bad temper, she wasn't a bad person. Seeing Jiang Chun like this, she hurried over to support him. "Why would my father give you the famed tower with such weak spiritual power?" Bai Xiaolan muttered as she supported Jiang Chun toward his residence. Along the way, the two didn't speak. When they arrived at Jiang Chun's residence, Bai Xiaolan frowned and muttered, "You're my father's last disciple. If you lose face, my father will lose face, and I will lose face too." After saying that, Bai Xiaolan walked away. Jiang Chun didn't even want to say a word, and he fainted in a daze. When he woke up, he found that his senior brothers and sisters were all in his room. These people were all standing in front of Bai Xiaolan, and they didn't even dare to breathe. What's going on?" Jiang Chun blinked his eyes. After sleeping, his spiritual power had almost recovered, but his head was still buzzing. "Hey, I'm discussing with you. Junior brother is so tired, and his spiritual power can't keep up. As senior brothers and sisters, shouldn't you help him?" No one responded to Jiang Chun, but Bai Xiaolan put her hands on her hips and scolded the group of senior brothers and sisters. "I say, little sister, you know how poor the divination pavilion is. We don't have anything good on us." Bai Xiaoyan smiled bitterly and said, "I have a pill that can improve spiritual power. If you want it, I'll give it to you." With that said, Bai Xiaoyan painfully took out a medicinal pill and handed it to Bai Xiaolan. When the others saw that their eldest senior brother had compromised, who else dared to say no? In an instant, the group of people took out their treasures one after another. Most of them were items that could increase their mental strength. Bai Xiaolan collected them one by one and handed them to Jiang Chun. She said seriously, "Little junior brother, you have to work hard. Don't embarrass your third senior sister." Jiang Chun was stunned. How did Bai Xiaolan's personality change after she fainted? Why is he treating me so well? However, Jiang Chun also knew that his spiritual power was too weak, so he didn't stand on ceremony and accepted all these things. "Third senior sister, why are you so good to him? When I first entered the sect, you treated me so..." The chubby youth had a gloomy look on his face. Back then, he was bullied by Bai Xiaolan every day until he cried. The other senior brothers and sisters secretly nodded. They were puzzled. Could it be that third senior sister has taken a fancy to Jiang Chun? But thinking about it, it shouldn't be. With Bai Xiaolan's character, although she was the weakest among them, she had the best taste. In their eyes, Jiang Chun didn't have any other advantages other than being a little handsome. "My father said that little junior brother will be his last disciple. From now on, the pavilion master position of divination pavilion will be his," Bai Xiaolan said. "So from now on, build a good relationship with little junior brother. When little junior brother becomes the pavilion master, your lives will be better. Otherwise, I'll make things difficult for you." When everyone heard this, their faces changed. Especially Bai Xiaoyan. Her face was filled with astonishment. White Robe, Immortal King, had two children. One of them was Bai Xiaolan, and the other was Bai Xiaoyan. Logically speaking, no matter how the pavilion master position of divination pavilion was passed down, it shouldn't be passed down to an outsider. However, Bai Xiaoyan was very lazy and indeed didn't want to be the pavilion master. But she was very curious. What was her father thinking? Others didn't know White Robe Immortal King's identity, not even Bai Xiaolan. But Bai Xiaoyan had been with White Robe Immortal King for so long. How could he not know? Moreover, he already knew Jiang Chun's identity. Passing the divination pavilion's position to the enemy's descendant? Was he stupid? Father hasn't announced it yet. You can't say such things. Bai Xiaoyun said snappily. The pavilion master position of Divination Pavilion is not ordinary. Isn't the last disciple the person who inherits Father's mantle? Bai Xiaolan said. When these words came out, everyone shut up. After all, what she said made sense. That eldest senior brother, the pavilion master position of Divination Pavilion is no longer yours. The chubby youth teased. Our family's business has been taken away. Originally, he wanted to tease Bai Xiaoyun, but who knew that this guy would slap his thigh? The joy on his face could not be concealed. And he even shouted, "Senior brothers and junior sisters, let's go. Let's celebrate." Everyone was speechless. They had seen people with big hearts, but they had never seen such a simple-minded person. His own sect was about to be taken over by someone else, and not only did you not fight for it, you even want to celebrate? What a werewolf! Since eldest senior brother was treating them to a meal to celebrate, the group of people naturally followed him. At this moment, only Jiang Chun and Bai Xiaolan were left in the room. Little junior brother, from now on, we're all family. If you encounter any difficulties or trouble, just tell third senior sister. Third senior sister is the person that Father loves the most. No matter what mistakes you make, no matter what trouble you encounter, as long as you tell third senior sister, I'll take care of it for you. Bai Xiaolan said seriously, as if she loved this future sect master of Divination Pavilion very much. When Jiang Chun heard this, his eyes flashed, and he immediately became excited. Third senior sister, I did make some mistakes, Jiang Chun said hesitantly. If you can help me take care of it, I'll owe you a big favor. Oh, what mistakes? Tell me about it? Bai Xiaolan was puzzled. Jiang Chun had just entered Divination Pavilion not long ago. What mistakes could he have made? Even if he had made a mistake, it was fine. As long as she nodded and took care of it, no one would dare to say anything. Third senior sister, promise me first, then I'll tell you. Jiang Chun felt guilty. It was not easy to find a scapegoat, so he could not just let it go like this. Bai Xiaolan was also innocent and pure. She had never met a scapegoat like Jiang Chun, so she immediately agreed and even patted her chest, saying that she would use her gender to guarantee it. I messed up the North Region human list and erased a person from the Earth list. What do you think? Jiang Chun said, but he saw that Bai Xiaolan's face was getting darker and darker. Chapter 1480. Heavenly Secret Pavilion's ranking list is the most authoritative ranking list in the immortal world. Heavenly Secret Pavilion is also famous for this. For so many years, there has never been a problem with the ranking list. After all, it is related to Heavenly Secret Pavilion's reputation. White Robe Immortal King also attaches great importance to the ranking list. Usually, White Robe Immortal King personally arranges the ranking list. Now, Jiang Chen's words made by Xiaolan completely kneel down. You made a mistake. How do you want me to take the blame? Bai Xiaolan almost fainted. But when she thought about how she used her gender as a guarantee, she felt uncomfortable. Words spoken are like spilled water. How can they be taken back? Moreover, with Miss Bai's character, she is not a person who goes back on her words. But Bai Xiaolan does not dare to take the blame for such a big matter. Give me the key to the famous building and the ranking list that Father gave you. I will help you change it back. Bai Xiaolan sighed and said, Now, this is the only way. Thank you, third senior sister. Jiang Chun is very excited and also very grateful to Bai Xiaolan. Bai Xiaolan rolled her eyes. If she knew that Jiang Chun made such a big mistake, she would not have taken the blame even if she was beaten to death. Then, Bai Xiaolan took the key and the ranking list and hurriedly left to change the ranking list. Jiang Chun let out a sigh of relief. As long as the ranking list is changed back, everything will be fine. However, after an incense stick's time, Bai Xiaolan returned. Her head is full of sweat, and her clothes are soaked in sweat. After entering Jiang Chen's room, she threw the key and the book to Jiang Chun and sat on the ground, shouting, I am too tired. This is not a job for a human. Third senior sister has worked hard. I will make tea for you. Jiang Chun is happy. thinking that this matter is finally settled. However, he did not see the strange expression on by Xiaolan's face. Little junior brother, with third senior sister doing it, there will be no problem. Moreover, with third senior sister's realm and mental strength, changing the ranking list is easy, you can rest assured. Bai Xiaolan spoke seriously. She did not forget to show off her cultivation before Jiang Chun, a true immortal. Jiang Chun chuckled. He was very happy in his heart. He thought to himself that he had really met a good person. You cultivate first. I'm a little tired. I'm going back to rest. Bai Xiaolan sat there for a while and then left. Jiang Chun did not think too much about it and continued to cultivate. 2 days later, the white-robed immortal king came looking for him, delivering another scroll. Recently, there are many geniuses appearing in the northern region. The rankings of the human rankings are constantly changing. Go and update it now. All right. Jiang Chun did not refuse. He thought that after 2 updates, his spiritual power had increased by a lot. Now, wouldn't updating a mere human list ranking be as easy as flipping his hand? Just like that, Jiang Chun stepped into the building with boundless confidence. Then, Jiang Chun updated the rankings on the human list according to the rankings on the scroll. Although it was very tiring, he did not make a mistake this time. In any case, he persevered. However, just as Jiang Chun turned and was about to leave, he saw the names on the Earth-level ranking list from the corner of his eye. Jiang Chun had been here before, so he had some impression of the names on the Earth-level ranking list. At this moment, Jiang Chun turned around. After taking a closer look, he was completely dumbfounded. Not to mention the other names, just the names that Jiang Chun was familiar with had changed. Especially the names of the last few. They had all disappeared. What the F*** CK? This can't be done, right? Jiang Chun tried hard to recall. Back then, when the Earth-level ranking list was updated, only the last name was erased. As for the other rankings, they did not change. Bai Xiaolan. After a few breaths, Jiang Chun came to his senses. The key to this building was in his hands. Ever since he entered the Divine Secret Pavilion, only Bai Xiaolan had entered. At this moment, Jiang Chun felt a little dizzy. His entire body swayed and could not stand steadily. He thought that Bai Xiaolan could help him change the rankings, but he did not expect this little girl to be even more unreliable. Not only did she correct the mistakes, but she even praised herself in front of him. This was too much. The Earth-level ranking list is wrong. Then what about the human list? At this moment, Jiang Chun's heart turned cold. He hurriedly took out the scroll from before and walked to the human list. After comparing them one by one, his eyes turned black and he almost fainted. After Bai Xiaolan's correction, the human list was even more wrong. Previously, it was only the top 10 that was wrong, but now it was all wrong. My dear sister, you are not helping me. You are harming me. Jiang Chun's face was sullen. The matter had become so big, he could not hide it for long. Once the white-robe immortal king knew, he would suffer. I have to think of a way to escape. I can't stay in the Divine Secret Pavilion anymore. Jiang Chun made up his mind to escape as soon as possible. At the same time, the Immortal Realm's northern region was in an uproar. Some people saw their names disappear from the list and thought that their strength had been greatly reduced. On the same day, they went to challenge those who were ranked higher than them and won all of them. Some people saw their rankings soar and their confidence soar. They also went to challenge those who were ranked higher than them, but they were beaten up at this moment. Everyone could guess that this was not a problem of personal strength, but the Divine Secret Pavilion's ranking list. However, not many people in this world knew where the Divine Secret Pavilion was. Even if they knew, they would not ask. After all, in the eyes of the world, the Divine Secret Pavilion was a sacred place. Ordinary people could not set foot there. Immortal King Xian Jun, what do you think about this? At this moment, in an ancient and magnificent hall, a few immortal monarchs stood together with their heads lowered. In front of them, Immortal King Xian Jun stood proudly, but at this moment, he was also frowning. He did not know that the pavilion master of the Divine Secret Pavilion was one of the so-called 3 immortal kings. But he knew that the pavilion master was not to be trifled with. It's just a ranking list. I think the divine secret pavilion must have been careless. It will be fine after a while. Immortal King Xianjun said, the divine secret pavilion has been established for so many years and has never made a mistake. It's understandable for it to make a mistake occasionally. Do we really not need to ask? If the ranking is wrong, it will affect the fighting spirit and mood of the young people. My son fell from the top 10 because of his own ranking. These days, he has no mood to cultivate and has been dispirited all day. One of the immortal monarchs smiled bitterly and said, I hope Immortal King Xianjun can ask. Immortal King, this is really nothing to us, but to the proud young generation, the ranking is more important than their own lives. If this ranking list is not corrected and continues to be messed around like this, I'm afraid it will really hurt the confidence of the young generation. The immortal monarchs spoke one after another. Immortal King Xianjun was in a dilemma. If he went, he would definitely ask, but in the eyes of the other party, it would undoubtedly be questioning. Questioning and interrogating were two different things. Rumor has it that the pavilion master of the divine secret pavilion's cultivation is sky-high, perhaps on par with me. If I go and ask, once a fight breaks out, for Immortal King Xianjun to be able to reach this step, his thinking was still very meticulous and cautious. Today's 6th update. I stand up. Chapter 1481. Immortal King Xianjun was different from the other two immortal kings. He often appeared in front of the world for fear that others would forget him. But this time, Immortal King Xianjun felt that he should go into seclusion. What kind of joke was this? He was the pavilion master of the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion, an existence rumored to be able to fight against the 3 immortal kings. And you want me to go ask him? Is there something wrong with my head? Isn't it good to be a proper immortal king? Why should I go and look for trouble? Of course, Immortal King Xianjun didn't know that the pavilion master of the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion was the other immortal king who had fought side by side with him. In the end, Immortal King Xianjun agreed readily, but the next day, he announced that he was going into seclusion and wouldn't see anyone. This made everyone extremely depressed. They all respected and revered you normally, but you went into seclusion at a critical moment? Immortal King Xianjun's actions. Could it be that he's afraid of the pavilion master of the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion? Looks like the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion isn't simple. Pass down the order. In the future, when we meet the disciples of the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion, we must treat them with the highest respect and not underestimate them. No one expected that because of Immortal King Xianjun's actions, the world's attitude towards the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion would change greatly. They were more respectful and even revered than before. As for everything that happened in the outside world, Jiang Chun and Bai Xiaolan, the two people involved, had no idea at all. At this moment, Jiang Chun arrived outside Bai Xiaolan's residence. After shouting a few times and receiving no response, he couldn't help but leave silently. Of course, Bai Xiaolan was in the room, but she had a guilty conscience. So how could she dare to see Jiang Chun? Now, Bai Xiaolan could only pray silently. When the matter was exposed, she hoped that Jiang Chun would be loyal enough to bear this matter alone. Senior brothers and sisters, I've recently reached a bottleneck in my cultivation. I want to, after half an incense stick of time, Jiang Chun arrived at the backyard and found his senior brothers and sisters, wanting to slip away. However, before he could finish speaking, Bai Xiaoyan walked over and put her arm around Jiang Chun's shoulder and said with a smile, Junior brother, you've come at the right time. The people from the overseas Immortal Mountain will arrive tomorrow and spar with us. What? What does that have to do with me? Jiang Chun asked in confusion. This time, the cultivation bases of the disciples sent by the outer sea Immortal Mountains are not high. We are all immortal monarchs, so it is not convenient for us to make a move. Therefore, the task of meeting the disciples of the overseas Immortal Mountain will be handed over to you and Bai Xiaolan. Bai Xiaoyan said seriously, This isn't appropriate, right? My cultivation is too low, and my strength is also not enough. If I were to lose in a spar, wouldn't it be a disgrace to the sect? Jiang Chun tactfully refused. I want to go out and train to improve my cultivation in intent realm. Little junior brother, you're so modest. Since you're going to be in charge of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, You should meet with some of the sects that are on good terms with us. This time, there are a total of 3 immortal mountains from the Outer Sea Islands. They have a good relationship with us. This is a good opportunity for you to meet them. Bai Xiaoyan said. Then, without waiting for Jiang Qin's reply, he turned around and left with the group of senior and junior brothers. This group of people is really idle all day long. They just eat and drink, waiting to become immortal kings. Jiang Qin looked at the back view of Bai Xiaoyan and the others with envy. Then his face darkened again. It was said that there were a total of 18 immortal mountains in the Outer Sea Islands, representing 18 sections. These 18 sects rarely came into contact with the sects on the continent and rarely showed their faces. But one thing was certain, these 18 sects were extremely powerful and had a very deep foundation. And this time, 3 of the 18 mountains came to visit, which would definitely alarm the White Robe Immortal King. At that time, the White Robe Immortal King would be there, and Jiang Chun would be under a lot of pressure. After all, he had a guilty conscience. Anyway, third senior sister also has a part in it. When there is a problem, we will bear it together, Jiang Chun muttered. Just like that, Jiang Chun returned to his residence. Adhering to the idea of blocking soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir, he began to cultivate in peace. Time passed very quickly. The moon rose and set on the sea. Soon, it was the day of the visit of the Outer Sea Islands. On this day, everyone in the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion appeared. They stood at the entrance of the courtyard, looking forward to it. Not long after, a red glow appeared in the distance. It was like a bridge between heaven and earth, running all the way from the depths of the sea to the front of the courtyard. Above the red glow, a group of people walked forward. Each of them had an outstanding bearing and an imposing appearance, especially the 3 people in the lead, 2 men and 1 woman. They were very conspicuous. One of the men was bald. He held a Buddhist seal, and scarlet Buddhist beads hung on his body, giving people the feeling of an evil Buddha. When his eyes opened and closed, a scarlet light flickered. Behind him, a bloodthirsty Asura appeared. This is the number 1 outer disciple of the Asura sect, Luo Wang. Bai Xiaoyan explained, this guy may look like a Buddhist cultivator, but he is actually a devil cultivator. If you spar with him, you have to be careful. Don't fall into the devil's path. When Jiang Qin heard this, he rolled his eyes. Fall into the devil's path? Big brother, please take a good look. I became a great demon in the lower realm. A mere devil's path? What is that? When the time comes, don't become a great demon because of me. That silver-haired young man in white is the number 1 outer disciple of the Sword Dao Hall, Sword Maniac. He is not scheming, but once he attacks, he goes all out. Bai Xiaoyan continued to introduce, this person is very strong. If his cultivation is the same as mine, even I might not be his match. Oh, sword cultivator? Jiang Qin was surprised. After becoming an immortal, most people would cultivate the 5 elements. Very few people would choose to cultivate the sword. First, it was too difficult to cultivate the sword. Cultivation techniques were rare, and immortal techniques related to the sword were even rarer. Second, sword cultivators needed to use their bodies to nurture their swords. If the sword in their hands broke, they would lose their lives. In this world, how many people would be willing to entrust their lives to a sword? As for that woman, she is the Sun-Moon sect's saintess, Serene Dream. She cultivates the sun and the moon at the same time. She is truly a blessed daughter of heaven. When Bai Xiaoyan introduced Serene Dream, it was worth it to look at her. Even Jiang Qin couldn't help but look at her a few more times, secretly comparing her with his disciples. In the end, he shook his head gently and muttered to himself, she is not as good-looking as my disciples. These 3 are the most important, but they probably won't spar with you. After all, they are all golden immortals. Jiang Qin didn't say anything, but he was very happy inside. Who would want to spar with them? What was the use of fighting and killing all day long? Junior Luo Wang greets the Pavilion Master. Junior Sword Maniac greets the Pavilion Master. Junior Serene Dream greets the Pavilion Master. After a dozen breaths, the group walked down the red clouds and stood outside the courtyard of the Divination Pavilion. They bowed to the white-robed immortal king in the lead. "We are all family. Come in." The white-robed immortal king didn't stand on ceremony. After nodding, he turned and led the group into the divination pavilion. "Today is the 7th chapter. Press the button to urge me to update and give me a small gift." Chapter 1482. The white-robed immortal king was very calm. He was neither angry nor happy, and no one could tell what he was thinking. Everyone followed behind him and arrived at the courtyard of the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion. The courtyard of the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion was really large. It contained mountains, rivers, and even pavilions. Just the square was much larger than an ordinary sect. At this moment, the disciples of the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion were standing together, while the disciples of the Outer Sea Immortal Mountain were standing side by side. At the east of the square, the white-robed immortal king stood silently in front of the largest building. "Pavilion Master, we didn't come here just to spar and comprehend the Tao. We have something to discuss." After a few breaths of time, the Azura Tao sect's Luo Wang couldn't bear it anymore. He opened his scarlet eyes and said bluntly, "The Outer Sea Immortal Trove is about to open. We came here on orders to inform the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion. We also hope that the Pavilion Master can help us deduce the fortune of our trip to the Outer Sea Immortal Trove." "The Outer Sea Immortal Trove is about to open? It's about time," Bai Xiaoyun and the others muttered. They naturally had some understanding of the Outer Sea Immortal Trove. In fact, these people had even entered it before. But as expected, although those who entered came out alive, they didn't gain anything. Of course, since ancient times, there was only one person who had entered the Outer Sea Immortal Trove and gained something, and that person was the white-robed Immortal King. Therefore, every time the Outer Sea Immortal Trove opened, the Outer Sea Immortal Mountain would come to ask the white-robed Immortal King. One had to know that in the eyes of the world, the white-robed Immortal King's strongest point wasn't his battle prowess, but his great light divination technique. According to the rules, the white-robed Immortal King said softly, "The Heaven's Secrets Pavilion has never done anything for anyone. There must be rules. We naturally understand the rules. Therefore, we came here to spar this time to choose someone to enter the Outer Sea Immortal Trove with us." The sword maniac of the Sword Tao sect said with a blank expression. Anyone who knew about the sword maniac knew that this guy was a fool before he made a move. Once he made a move, every move would be fatal, and he would fight to the death. "Senior, according to the previous rules, we will choose the strongest young person to accompany us to enter the Outer Sea Immortal Trove." Serene Dream, the saintess of the Sun-Moon cult, spoke up as well. However, she frowned slightly and said, "But has the Divination Pavilion accepted any new disciples recently?" As soon as these words came out, the group of people from the Heaven's Secret Pavilion couldn't help but roll their eyes. They secretly thought that Yumu's words were too disrespectful to the white-robed Immortal King, right? He was a celestial king, so how could he accept disciples every few days? Besides, it's not like you don't know us. You're not blind. Can't you see that there's a genuine immortal here? It didn't take a genius to figure out that this was the new disciple. Everyone knew that Deep Dream was no fool. Since she said so, she was naturally mocking the new disciples of the Divine Secret Pavilion for being too weak and low in cultivation. "This is my personal disciple." The white-robed Immortal King spoke in a light voice. He didn't explain further. However, Jiang Qin's words changed Yu Ming and others' opinions about him greatly. The last disciple of an Immortal King was undoubtedly the center of attention. If he didn't have excellent talent and aptitude, how could an Immortal King accept him as the successor of the inheritance? "I'm ignorant," Deep Dream whispered, glanced at Jiang Qin a few more times, and asked, "Then who else is here this time besides him?" "Of course it's me." Bai Xiaolan's tone was unkind. She was the eldest miss, so how could she allow Deep Dream to be arrogant here? As soon as she finished speaking, Bai Xiaolan stepped forward and stood in front of Deep Dream. She mocked, "As the Holy Virgin of the Sun-Moon sect, your cultivation has just reached the Gold Immortal realm? Isn't it inappropriate?" Cultivators don't just look at the realm. Sometimes people with low realms are not necessarily weak, Deep Dream said calmly. As soon as these words came out, Bai Xiaolan was amused. She chuckled, pointed to Jiang Chun beside her, and said, "My junior brother is the same. His realm is low, but it doesn't mean he's weak. If you don't believe me, you can fight with my junior brother." Deep Dream frowned. She didn't want to fight with Jiang Chun from the bottom of her heart. As the holy virgin of the Sun Moon sect, her cultivation was at the gold, immortal realm. Her talent was extraordinary, and her combat strength was extremely strong. She was even known as the strongest genius of the Sun Moon sect in the past 3,000 years. With such identity and reputation, how could she be willing to fight with someone whose realm was lower than hers? There was nothing to show off if she won. If she lost, wouldn't it be even more humiliating? Of course, Deep Dream didn't think she would lose. Junior brother, according to the rules, the Overseas Immortal Trove can only be entered by people from the Overseas Immortal Mountains. But our Divine Secret Pavilion also lives here, so we also have the opportunity to enter. Bai Xiaoran explained, but the condition for entering is to fight with people from the Overseas Immortal Mountains to prove your strength. Hearing this, Jiang Chun blinked, took a step back, and said, "I'm not strong enough, so I won't go." At this time, not to mention Deep Dream and the others, even Bai Xiaoyan and the others were dumbfounded. Even the White Robe Immortal King was stunned for a moment, but he soon understood. After all, he knew Wan Cheng's character, and his son was the same. This was very normal. This is not a small matter. Don't mess around. The White Robe Immortal King said, "Fight with them." "Me? I can't. I definitely can't. By the way, I made a mistake while cultivating a few days ago, so I can't fight now. Also, I've been a little weak recently, and my hands and feet are weak." Jiang Chun said a series of words. In any case, he would say whatever reason he thought of, regardless of whether others believed it or not. Right now, he only wanted to leave the Divine Secret Pavilion. So how could he be willing to waste time here? "I've already corrected the list," the White Robe Immortal King suddenly said, which scared Jiang Chun and Bai Xiaolan so much that they trembled. Then, Jiang Chun turned around stiffly, not daring to look directly at the White Robe Immortal King, and asked weakly, "And then? If you can enter the Overseas Immortal Trove, I won't pursue this matter." The White Robe Immortal King smiled and said, "If you can't enter, you can think of the consequences yourself." "No, I just made a few mistakes. The rest were made by third senior sister," Jiang Chun explained, but when he saw Bai Xiaolan snickering at the side, he knew what was going on. It was impossible for the White Robe Immortal King to know about the list so quickly. It was most likely that Bai Xiaolan had reported it and pushed all the blame to Jiang Chun. Looking at Bai Xiaolan's expression at this moment, Jiang Chun was even more certain that this innocent little girl had sold him out. "If I can't enter the Overseas Immortal Trove, what kind of punishment will I receive?" Jiang Chun asked, still holding a glimmer of hope in his heart. If the punishment was not heavy, at most he would be punished, and he would not go to that strange Overseas Immortal Trove. Chapter 1483. Although Jiang Chun had never been to the Overseas Immortal Treasure Trove, he had heard of it. Although everyone who went in could come out alive, those who came out would be abnormal. Some would go insane, some would lose their cultivation, and some would even fall into a deep sleep. Of course, these symptoms would get better after a while, but who would be willing to suffer if it was not necessary? Jiang Chun was very clear that the Overseas Immortal Treasure Trove was controlled by the Overseas Immortal Mountain. Even if he really found something good in the Overseas Immortal Treasure Trove, he would not be able to bring it back. Instead of going to the Overseas Immortal Treasure Trove to search for treasures, it was more like working for the Overseas Immortal Mountain. "Master, I really don't want to go. Just tell me, what punishment will there be if I don't go?" Jiang Chun said angrily. "It's not a big punishment. You won't be able to cultivate for 100 years. The White-Robed Immortal King said, "The Heaven's Secret Pavilion has a written rule. You can go and see the rules yourself." Jiang Chun was terrified. What kind of joke was this? Not being able to cultivate for 100 years. One had to know that Zhou Kunlun and the three immortal kings had only made a 1,000-year agreement. Time was already tight. If he lost another 100 years, what was the point of talking about it? Jiang Qin wasn't even sure whether he could become an immortal king in 1,000 years. Not to mention that he only had 900 years left. Then I'll try my best. If I can't beat them and can't enter the overseas immortal treasure trove, don't blame me, Jiang Qin mumbled. As long as you don't go easy on them, I won't blame you, the white-robed immortal king said. Jiang Qin let out a long sigh to himself. He knew that if he went easy on them, he would not be able to escape the white-robed immortal king's eyes. This guy was old and cunning. Even his eyelashes were transparent. How could he not see that Jiang Qin was going easy on them? Looks like he's the only one who will be sparring with us this time. Luo Wang of the Shura retreat frowned and shook his head. I don't think there's a need to spar. No matter how talented a cultivator who just entered the true immortal realm is, he won't be a match for us. Why don't we give face to the pavilion master? We can bring him into the overseas immortal trove, said Serene Dream, the saintess of the Sun Moon sect. Before Jiang Qin and the white-robed immortal king could speak, Bai Xiaolan had immediately stepped forward and said anxiously, "What are all of you pretending for? He's just a golden immortal. Isn't he just one realm higher than my junior brother? It's just one realm. My little junior brother might not necessarily lose. You won't necessarily win." After saying that, Bai Xiaolan looked at Jiang Qin, clenched her fist, and encouraged him, "Little junior brother, go." Jiang Qin really didn't want to say anything to Bai Xiaolan. Could it be that this little girl had forgotten that she had sold him? Let's just go through the motions. Kendo Hall's sword maniac said softly. He was an honest person. He stepped out and stared at Jiang Qin. I will fight against you. If you win, you can enter the overseas immortal vault. After saying that, the sword maniac added, defeating me is equivalent to defeating both of them, because I am stronger than both of them. When Yu Ming and Luo Wang heard that, although their expressions were ugly, they did not refute. That was because the sword maniac's combat strength was indeed terrifying. In particular, he was a sword cultivator. His attack power was simply terrifying. Then I'll give it a try. Jiang Qin also braced himself, but he could not voice out the bitterness in his heart. He knew that the three people in front of him were not weak, especially the sword maniac. As a sword cultivator, his combat strength must be extremely terrifying. However, if he did not fight, he would face a 100-year cultivation ban. I'm going to attack. After a few breaths, the crowd dispersed. The long sword in the sword maniac's hand vibrated. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword ray appeared out of nowhere. The sword ray was not very bright, but it gave people a feeling of invincibility. Especially when it streaked across the sky, the sharp sound seemed to pierce through everything in the world, and even the soul was affected. Jiang Qin did not dare to be careless. He formed a fist with his left hand, and a tiger's roar shook out. His right hand formed a palm print, and a dragon's roar soared out. Boom! The fist and palm met, colliding with the sword ray. After two explosions, the fist and palm prints dissipated, but there was still a wisp of sword ray left. Although this wisp of sword ray's power was much weaker, its momentum was not reduced. Its speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it hit Jiang Qin. Boom! After the explosion, everyone saw that Jiang Qin's body only trembled slightly. There were no injuries on his body. Not even a corner of his clothes was torn. Upon closer inspection, there was a faint layer of holy light around Jiang Qin's body. That was the saint healing technique. Junior brother has already cultivated the saint healing technique to such a level. Not only can it protect the body, it can even protect external objects. TSK. As expected of the last disciple that master values. He has only just awakened the power of the light attribute and has already reached this level. Bai Xiaoyun and the others exclaimed, but they saw a vine rising from the ground behind Jiang Qin. The purplish gold light was boundless. The vine was like a chain, and with a whistling sound, it shot toward the sword maniac. The sword maniac did not hesitate. He held a long sword and slashed repeatedly. When he cut the vine, he rushed in front of Jiang Chun. However, just as he was about to attack again, a wisp of chaotic energy quietly appeared. Like a thumb-sized dragon, it coiled around the sword maniac's right hand. Immediately after, another wisp of chaotic energy appeared and imprisoned the sword maniac's left hand. Then, Jiang Chun held a flower in his hand, and a third wisp of chaotic energy appeared. It was like a sharp needle, pressing between the sword maniac's eyebrows. Silence. At this moment, the entire place was silent. No one expected the battle to end like this. No one expected Jiang Chun to have chaotic energy. Chaotic energy was extremely rare even in the celestial world, let alone someone who could control it. The sword maniac was careless. Luo Wang sighed. He had fought the sword maniac before and knew that his strength was not so weak. If the sword maniac had attacked with all his strength, even if he was defeated, he would not have lost so quickly. With the sword maniac's character, once he attacks, he will definitely go all out. He will not be careless. Deep Dream was puzzled. Could it be that the sword maniac was enlightened? Did he know how to be polite? However, only the sword maniac knew that he had not been careless at all, nor had he deliberately gone easy on him. The moment he approached Jiang Chun, he could feel the fluctuations of an array around Jiang Chun. If the array had not imprisoned him, how could he have been defeated so easily? Good move, the sword maniac whispered, nodded, and said, I've lost. Thank you for letting me win. Jiang Chun said, I was just lucky. I'm afraid I won't be so lucky the next time I fight you. Jiang Chun was telling the truth. After all, he had tricked the sword maniac this time. If there was a next time, the sword maniac would definitely be wary of Jiang Chun's array. Pavilion Master, since the battle is over and there is no one else from the Divine Secret Pavilion to fight, this matter is settled. What do you think? Deep Dream asked, pointing at Jiang Chun and saying, let him accompany us to the overseas immortal trove. Chapter 1484. To put it nicely, the overseas immortal mountain was a place to comprehend the Tao and exchange pointers. To put it bluntly, it was just a place to find a job. If they found a job, they could still give face to the Divine Secret Pavilion. Since the Divine Secret Pavilion could not put down their face, the White Robe Immortal King would naturally help them deduce. At this moment, Bai Xiaolan would definitely not participate. This little girl was very shrewd and did not want to go to the overseas immortal treasure. After all, it was not a good place. It was strange and unpredictable. Going there would be torture. Senior brothers and sisters, didn't you say that third senior sister would also participate in the exchange? Jiang Chun asked, feeling very unhappy. This little girl, not only did she sell him out, she also wanted him to go to the overseas immortal treasure to work alone. Be a human. It's all voluntary. If third junior sister doesn't want to go, then don't go. Bai Xiaoyan said. As soon as these words came out, Jiang Chun's face darkened. Voluntary? Which eye of yours saw that I was willing? If he was not betrayed by Bai Xiaolan, would the matter of the ranking list be known? If the matter of the ranking list was not exposed, Jiang Chun would definitely not go to the overseas immortal treasure. Master, if I leave, what will happen to the ranking list of the famous pavilion? Jiang Chun said very affectionately. I am willing to stay in the famous pavilion and update the ranking list to share the pressure of the Divine Secret Pavilion. However, after these words came out, the expressions of the crowd were obviously not much better. With your mental strength? If the famous pavilion was handed over to you, it would be destroyed. When you come back from the overseas immortal treasure, you can take charge of the famous pavilion. The White Robe Immortal King said. What if I can't come back? Jiang Chun asked. Of course, Jiang Chun's thoughts were very realistic. If he really went to the overseas immortal treasure this time, he would not return to the Divine Secret Pavilion even if he was beaten to death. At that time, he would be free to fly as high as the sky. I will come and pick you up. The White Robe Immortal King seemed to have seen through Jiang Chun's thoughts and said jokingly, the famous pavilion of the Divine Secret Pavilion will still be handed over to you. At this moment, Jiang Chen was completely speechless and his heart turned cold. Does this mean that once I enter the Divine Secret Pavilion, I can't leave? Motherf asterisk Kerr, F asterisk Kerr. Pavilion Master, I hope you can help us deduce the fortune and misfortune of entering the overseas immortal trove this time. Yu Ming cupped his hands and bowed. This was also the most important purpose of the Three Mountains visit. The white-robed immortal king was an old fox. He was naturally prepared. He waved his hand and whispered, "Good luck." Not to mention the white-robed immortal king's divination techniques. Even the entire immortal world was renowned for it. After hearing the word great fortune, a smile appeared on everyone's face. After that, everyone excused themselves and took Jiang Chen with them. Following the red clouds, they walked towards the depths of the sea. Master, are you letting little junior brother go, just like that? Bai Xiaoyan frowned and said, little junior brother doesn't look like a good person. Once he leaves, I'm afraid he won't come back, right? That's right, that's right. I think junior brother is very cunning. The others chimed in. Their evaluation of Jiang Chen's character was indeed somewhat low. The white-robed immortal king laughed, not minding it at all. In this world, as long as he wanted, there was no one he couldn't find, unless Jiang Chen had entered those unknown regions of the immortal world. However, those regions were extraordinary and unpredictable. Even an immortal king might not be able to return alive after entering. With Jiang Chen's character, he definitely wouldn't enter those regions. Father, why must you let little junior brother enter the immortal trove? Bai Xiaolan asked curiously. In fact, everyone was not stupid. They had already seen through the white-robed immortal king's thoughts. This time, it was the white-robed immortal king who made the decision to send Jiang Chen into the immortal trove. There's something he wants there. As for whether he can get it or not, it'll depend on his own fortune. The white-robed immortal king sighed. He looked up at the clouds and whispered, your descendant has returned. If you're still alive, will you appear? At this moment, Jiang Chen, Yu Ming, and the others were moving forward. The red clouds were very fast, and in half an hour, they arrived at the depths of the sea. Looking around, the distant horizon was covered in fog, and nothing could be seen clearly. But in front of them, there were islands shrouded in immortal chi. Each island was a sect, and this was the land of the immortal mountains overseas. Fellow Taoist Jiang, there will be many people coming later. You must keep a low profile. The sword fanatic reminded him. The immortal mountains overseas rarely contact people from the outside world, and their attitude towards people from the outside world is not very friendly. I won't talk. I'll just watch. Jiang Chen smiled. He didn't want to cause trouble. After a few breaths, young people appeared on each island. Their cultivation was all at the golden immortal realm. This made Jiang Chen quite puzzled. He asked, are all the disciples of the immortal mountains overseas at this cultivation level? If your cultivation level is above the golden immortal realm, you can't enter the immortal trove overseas. There are special rules and orders there that even immortal kings can't break. Luo Wang explained, these golden immortals are the strongest golden immortals in the various sections. Oh! Jiang Chen was relieved. He looked at them one by one. When he saw one of them, Jiang Chen couldn't help but widen his eyes. When that person saw Jiang Chen, his whole body trembled and he almost ran away. 9 great ancient spirits. Jiang Chen stared at that person. It was obviously one of the 9 great ancient spirits who had become an immortal not long ago. He didn't expect this guy to be doing well after entering the immortal world. He actually joined the immortal mountains overseas. At this moment, when this ancient spirit saw Jiang Chen, he was a little flustered at first. But when he saw Jiang Chen's cultivation level, he immediately became confident. Yo, isn't this myriad transformations? Look at this cultivation level. TSK, TSK, TSK. This ancient spirit mocked. Now he was called Gulu. Like Luo Wang, he was a disciple of Shura Dojo. So what if your cultivation level is low? It's easy to beat you. Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. The grudge between him and the 9 great ancient spirits wasn't just a little bit. Try? See if I don't beat you to death." Gulu raised his eyebrows. In the mortal world, he had been angered by Jiangchun. Now that he was in the immortal world, his cultivation level was higher than Jiangchen's. Naturally, he wanted to vent his anger. Around them, there were many onlookers. No one stopped him. Even Sword Maniac, Serene Dream, Luo Wang, and the others were silent. It seems that the immortal mountains overseas really don't like people from the outside world, Jiangchun thought to himself. But this was exactly what he wanted. "Come, let's have a try." Jiangchun hooked his finger at Gulu and said contemptuously, "Don't think that you're powerful just because your cultivation level is higher than mine. I can deal with someone like you with one hand." "Arrogant," Gulu shouted, and immediately punched out. Although Gulu had just entered the immortal world and his cultivation level wasn't very high among the immortals in the immortal world, his talent was extraordinary and his combat strength was even more extraordinary. He had already been recognized by Shiradojo. At this moment, when he punched out, the fist radiance seemed to turn into an Azura. As it roared, a burst of demonic chi erupted. Shiradojo cultivates demonic chi, but you don't seem to know that demonic chi is nothing in my eyes, Jiangchun said contemptuously. A burst of demonic chi erupted from his body, and a gray shadow appeared behind him. Chapter 1485. The Great Fiend manifested. With a roar, heaven and earth seemed to tremble. Gulu's demonic aura turned into nothingness in an instant. Even his body was trembling, demonic and fiendish. This was a natural suppression. Great Fiend? This guy? How did he do it? At this moment, the surrounding people cried out in surprise. Even the eyes of those who cultivated the Devil Tao were filled with shock. Everyone knew that there were many demonic cultivators in the world, but only a few who cultivated fiendish aura. It was almost impossible to find one. That was because fiendish aura didn't have any cultivation techniques. It was all about chance and opportunity. Fiendish aura was the pinnacle of the demonic path. Even the Shura Retreat, a powerful sect that cultivated demonic arts, found it difficult to cultivate great fiendish aura. "You don't even have the courage to attack me, do you?" Jiangchun looked at Gu Lu mockingly. The shadow of the great fiend behind him roared like thunder. The terrifying fiendish aura was like a gray tide, attacking Gu Lu and everyone's hearts. What a monster! Strange. He cultivated great fiendish aura and still maintained a clear mind. Everyone's hearts were in turmoil. Gu Lu's face was ashen. He knew that he wouldn't be able to suppress Jiangchun for the rest of his life. No. To be more precise, he wouldn't be able to compete with Jiangchun for the rest of his life. This was a natural suppression that couldn't be reversed. "Daoist Jiang, please stop. This person is a disciple of the Shura Retreat. No matter what grudges you had in the lower realm, you can start over in the immortal realm," Luo Wang said. Jiangchun sneered and said mockingly, "When Gu Lu challenged me just now, none of you stopped him. You all wanted to see me make a fool of myself. Now that you know he's not as good as me, you want to stop me from continuing. How bold! That's how it is. He's from the overseas immortal mountain," Luo Wang said directly. "But you're not. Oh, so you're xenophobic?" Jiangchun smiled and didn't continue to attack. He knew very well that even with the white-robed immortal king's support, if he dared to act recklessly in the overseas immortal mountain, he wouldn't be able to get away with it. "Where's the overseas immortal treasure?" After a dozen breaths, Jiangchun looked around and asked directly. He didn't want to talk to these people, so he went straight to the point. "Let's wait. It should open soon. This is the location of the overseas immortal trove. It will open soon. The overseas immortal mountain. The overseas immortal realm immortal mountain." Jiangchun wasn't in a hurry. He was just wondering why the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion had asked him to come here this time. Practitioners above the Golden Immortal Realm were not allowed to enter the overseas immortal treasure, and Jiangchun was the only practitioner below the Golden Immortal Realm in the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion. "Immortal, immortal, 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 immortal king, make immortal, 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 immortal immortal to him. Immortal, immortal Wong. Immortal, immortal, immortal. Immortal to be. Earth. At this moment, there was a roar between heaven and earth. Seawater rose and swirled in the air. Heaven and earth seemed to be connected at this moment. Boom! After a dozen breaths, there was another explosion. The seawater in the air exploded, revealing an azure space entrance. Needless to say, the overseas immortal treasure was inside this azure space entrance. Go in, go! At this moment, the disciples of the overseas immortal mountain swarmed out, afraid that they would be slower than the others. Jiang Chun was stunned. After everyone went in, a bold idea suddenly popped up in his mind. I'm not going in, I'm leaving. However, as soon as Jiang Chun turned around, he saw a white-robed figure standing in the distance, looking at him with a smile. Jiang Chun was speechless. The white-robed immortal king knew him well. He was here to stop him. I don't know you, but I know your father. The white-robed immortal king joked, like father, like son. You win. Jiang Chun glared at him. He had no choice but to enter the overseas immortal treasure. After entering through the azure door of light, a small village appeared before their eyes. There were living creatures in the village. Some were chatting, some were playing, and some were farming. There are living creatures in here? Jiang Chun exclaimed. Although he knew some things about the overseas immortal treasure, he didn't expect that there would be people in here. The most important thing was that these were not illusions. They were real. What is this place? A small independent world? Jiang Chun exclaimed. He found that a few villagers were looking at him. However, after a few breaths, these villagers stopped looking at Jiang Chun and went on with their own things. Jiang Chun was very curious. He walked over and asked an Annie, "Excuse me, is this the overseas immortal treasure?" Overseas immortal treasure? That's what you outsiders say. The Annie didn't treat him as an outsider and said, "Anyway, we have never gone out. We have been here forever." Then is there any treasure here? Jiang Chun asked, but in his heart, he thought that he was asking too much. After all, the people in this village were all mortals. How could mortals know about the treasures mentioned by immortals? Perhaps in their eyes, fish and meat were treasures. The 5 grains were also treasures. In the village chief's house, there is something that glows. However, it is very heavy. People have come here before, but they didn't pick it up. The Annie said, "Young man, do you want to try? This is such a good thing. If you can pick it up, you will give it to me?" Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. There was something wrong with the plot. Generally speaking, after entering a certain treasure land, one would definitely need to explore it. In addition to one's own luck, one would be able to obtain some treasures. But now, after asking, there really was one? "Can I trouble you to lead the way?" Jiang Chun said. "Young man, follow me." The Annie was not pretentious. She brought Jiang Chun to a relatively large thatched hut. Without knocking on the door, he walked in casually. What entered his eyes was a dry well. Behind the dry well was a house made of mud. The door of the house was open. From the outside, everything in the house could be seen. What is that thing? Jiang Chun squinted and saw that on the table in the house, there was indeed a palm-sized thing that was shining with light. The village chief also doesn't know. This thing has been in his house for a long time. It is said that it was passed down from his ancestors. The Annie sighed, because of this thing, the village chief wanted to move the table several times, but couldn't move it. This thing, why does it look more and more like an ice crystal, celestial jade? Jiang Chun walked closer and rubbed his eyes. He thought that he was seeing things. One must know that the ice crystal celestial jade was a treasure that could be refined into a supreme celestial artifact. A thumb-sized piece was priceless and could be said to be priceless. And now, there was a palm-sized piece in front of him. Chapter 1486. A palm-sized ice crystal celestial jade. If it was placed in the outside world, it would definitely cause a bloody storm. But here, it became a problem. The village chief wanted to move the table, but the ice crystal celestial jade was pressing down on the table, making it impossible to move. There were people who came here before, and the villagers told them generously that there was such a thing here. However, the immortal treasure had been opened so many times, and no one could take it away. This made the villagers very annoyed, especially the village chief, who was having a headache. "Let me try," Jiang Chun said softly, pointing at the ice crystal celestial jade on the table. "If I can pick it up, you will give it to me? Of course, if you can take it away, the village chief will be very happy," Biani said. While they were talking, an old man with a walking stick walked in. When he saw Jiang Chun, his eyes lit up. "Young man, are you from the outside world?" "Grandpa, I am indeed from the outside world," Jiang Chun said with a smile. "That's great. I heard that there are immortals in the outside world who can fly in the sky." The village chief was excited, pointing at the ice crystal celestial jade on the table. "Immortal, can you take this stone away?" "Let me try." Jiang Chun nodded, then walked in front of the table. The immortal energy in his body exploded, and his palm was full of runes. Then Jiang Chun pressed his hand on it, and instantly a majestic wave of immortal energy appeared from the ice crystal celestial jade. This immortal energy was very special. It was as heavy as the origin energy of all living things, and a single strand of energy was comparable to a mountain. Jiang Chun circulated all the immortal energy in his body, but this ice crystal celestial jade didn't move at all, as if it was rooted on the table. In the end, Jiang Chun even used his chaotic energy, but this palm-sized ice crystal celestial jade was too heavy. He couldn't move it at all. This thing is really not something that ordinary people can take away. Jiang Chun smiled bitterly. "It's like it's rooted on the table. Little brother, this you can't move it?" The old man sighed. He was the village chief of this village. At this moment, his face was full of disappointment. His hair was white, and his face was full of wrinkles. He looked a bit bitter. "This is too heavy." Jiang Chun sighed. Since he couldn't take it away, there was nothing he could do. However, just as Jiang Chun turned around, the Annie beside him spoke up. "Old village chief, why don't you just change the table?" "A table? I can't even move the table." The village chief smiled bitterly. He was not a cultivator. He was old and had one foot in the grave. Not to mention that the table was being held down by the ice crystal immortal jade. Even if it wasn't, it would still be difficult for him to move the table. However, when these words entered into Jiang Chun's ears, it was like a thunderclap that allowed him to understand something. "Village chief, what is this table made of?" Jiang Chun asked. At this moment, Jiang Chun finally came to his senses. The ice crystal immortal jade was so heavy. How could an ordinary table withstand the weight of the ice crystal immortal jade? Now that he thought about it carefully, this seemingly ordinary table might be the real treasure. This was passed down from our ancestors and has always been here. The village chief said, "Of course it's made of wood." Jiang Chun heard this and naturally did not believe it. In this world, what kind of wood could withstand the weight of palm-sized ice crystal immortal jade? "This table," Jiang Chun muttered. He spread out his divine sense and covered the table. At first, Jiang Chun did not feel anything different about the table. However, after a few breaths, as his divine sense penetrated deeper, Jiang Chun discovered that the table was actually emitting wisps of obscure aura. Especially the inside of the table, there were actually seals in the four corners of the table. "This is a sealed treasure?" Jiang Chun was shocked. Although he could not see what material the table was made of, since it was sealed, it meant that this table was not ordinary. As for seals, Jiang Chun certainly had great attainments in them. At this moment, Jiang Chun formed a seal with both hands and began to break the seal. After half an incense stick's time, when the seal on the four legs of the table was broken, the palm-sized ice crystal immortal jade actually shrunk and turned into a chessboard, falling in the middle of the table. The table also revealed its original form. It was actually a chessboard. Moreover, the chessboard kept shrinking at this moment and finally turned into the size of a palm. Seeing this, Jiang Chun stretched out his hand and waved. A surge of immortal chi rose into the air and easily collected the chessboard and table into his hand. No wonder I couldn't move it. It's not that the ice crystal immortal jade is heavy, but this table is sealed, Jiang Chun said with relief. Then, Jiang Chun looked at the old village chief and said awkwardly, "Village chief, this table and that stone are one. You see, this table is gone. How about I make a new table for you?" When the old village chief heard this, he did not disagree. However, he told Jiang Chun that the table could be changed, but it had to be done according to his idea. After it was done, he had to help him put down the designated seat. For Jiang Chun, this was simply something that could be done casually. Naturally, he would not refuse. Just like this, Jiang Chun went to the mountain near the village and chopped some wood. He made a new table for the village chief and placed it in the designated seat. After that, this matter was satisfactorily concluded. At this moment, Jiang Chun stood at the entrance of the village. Looking at this inconspicuous little village in front of him, his heart was filled with emotions. In this kind of place, there were actually such treasures. Moreover, Jiang Chun did not know where these treasures came from, nor did the villagers know. What kind of place is this overseas immortal treasure? Jiang Chun frowned. Just as he was about to leave this place, he saw a villager fishing in the nearby river. Fishing was naturally a very normal thing. However, the key was that the fishing rod this villager was using was somewhat strange. Upon closer inspection, the fishing rod was very simple and unadorned. There seemed to be a layer of gilt on the surface, and there were also dim runes. Jiang Chun walked over curiously. He came up to the villager and greeted him. Then he asked to see the fishing rod. The villagers here were very simple and did not think much about it. They handed the fishing rod to Jiang Chun. After receiving the fishing rod, Jiang Chun's expression changed as he looked at it. The fishing rod was very ordinary in nature. It was indeed made of ordinary wood. However, the runes on the fishing rod were a very rare summoning rune. By carving these runes on the fishing rod, it could naturally summon some things over. If I use this fishing rod to fish, can I catch a lot of things? Jiang Chun asked. Of course. Every time I cast the rod, there will be fish that will take the bait. The villager smiled. This is something passed down by the ancestors. It has been used for a long time. Then what's up with the runes on the fishing rod? Does anyone in the village know how to carve these runes? Jiang Chun asked. This is a craft in our village. There are not many people who know this craft nowadays. The village chief knows a little about it. The villager said, the runes on the fishing rod have been damaged quite a bit. When the village chief saw it, he helped me patch it up. Village chief? Jiang Chun's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked into the village. His pupils constricted. This was because he saw the village chief smiling at him. As a mortal, they could only see up to a distance of 100 meters. And this place was a full 1,000 meters away from the village chief's house. How could a mortal cross 1,000 meters and smile at a person? I've met an expert. Jiang Chun was shocked. He took a step forward and instantly returned to the village chief's house. Young man, there's nothing left in our small village. Why did you come back? The village chief leaned on his walking stick. He looked like a candle in the wind, about to be extinguished at any moment. However, Jiang Chun did not think so. Senior, you must be joking. All experts like to live in seclusion. I think Senior is such a person, right? Jiang Chun said respectfully. May I know how to address Senior? Chapter 1487. As the saying goes, green mountains and clear waters nurture immortals, while the bustling city is filled with hidden experts. Jiang Chun firmly believed that the village chief in front of him was definitely a hidden expert. Just call me village chief. I'm used to people calling me that. The village chief stroked his beard and said, there really isn't much in this small village. You've already taken the most valuable thing. Village chief, the summoning runes on the fishing rod. Jiang Chun licked his lips and asked, can you teach me? Hearing these words, the old village chief laughed and said, there's no harm in teaching you, but I have a request. The summoning runes had extraordinary uses. Not only could they summon living beings, they could also summon some special things. They could even summon runes of the Great Tao. However, there weren't many people in the outside world who knew about the summoning runes. Most of them were gathered in the Holy Ghost sect, and the cultivation of the summoning runes was never taught to outsiders. Now he finally met someone who knew about the summoning runes and was willing to teach him. How could Jiang Chun let go of this opportunity? Village chief, just say it. If I can do it, I'll definitely agree. Jiang Chun said seriously. I've stayed in this small village for a long time. I want to go home. The village chief said, I'll teach you the summoning runes, and you'll bring me home. That's it? Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. At the same time, he was puzzled. According to the villagers, the village chief had always lived in this village. This was his home. Then, now that the village chief said he wanted to go home, which home was it? My home is not far away. It's 100,000 miles away, but with my body, I'm afraid I can't walk there. The village chief sighed and said, For a mortal, 100,000 miles is a distance that can't be covered without a few years of walking. Plus, I'm old. I'm already powerless. Hearing this, Jiang Chun blinked and looked the village chief up and down. He asked curiously, Village chief, you don't have cultivation? I used to. The village chief smiled bitterly and said, That was a long time ago. Now, I'm just a mortal. In the past, Jiang Chun frowned and didn't ask further. However, he knew that the old village chief wasn't simple. At the same time, Jiang Chun realized there must be some creatures in the overseas immortal treasure with cultivation, and their cultivation level must not be too low. In that case, he would have to be more careful in the immortal trove. This is a cultivation method for cultivating summoning runes. You can comprehend it yourself. The old village head directly handed a silk book to Jiang Chun and then walked into the house. After half an incense stick of time, he came out with a small package. Let's go. The old village chief said, Don't you need to prepare? Don't you need to say goodbye to the villagers? Jiang Chun asked. The old village chief left in such a hurry. There's no need to say goodbye. We're not from the same world. The old village chief sighed and said, They have their own lives. I've lived here for decades and have already affected them. Now that I'm leaving without saying goodbye, it's a kind of relief. Jiang Chun didn't say anything more. He put away the silk book and carried the old village chief on his back. He stepped out and appeared outside the village. However, at this moment, the old village chief let out a muffled groan and then coughed violently. His face was pale, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. After coughing a few times, he reminded, I don't have any cultivation now. I can't withstand your speed. You should slow down. Walk slowly. You can also comprehend the summoning runes on the way. When I get home, I won't have time to teach you. Jiang Chun heard this and secretly said that he was confused. How could a mortal's body withstand this kind of teleportation? Then, Jiang Chun continued to comprehend the summoning runes while carrying the old village chief on his back. On the way, whenever there was something he didn't understand, Jiang Chun would humbly ask for advice. The old village chief was also happy to tell him. Just like this, the two of them walked together. Time also slowly passed. 6 days later, Jiang Chun walked more than 30,000 miles. For Jiang Chun, this was already very slow. But for the old village chief, this speed was still too fast. He lay on Jiang Chun's shoulder and occasionally panted. Obviously, he wasn't used to Jiang Chun's speed. There's a forest in front. Let's rest there. The old village chief pointed ahead. There was a dense bamboo forest. In the depths of the bamboo forest, there were blurry black shadows. Jiang Chun didn't refuse. He carried the old village chief into the bamboo forest. After entering the bamboo forest, the old village chief's expression was obviously not right. He leaned on his walking stick. His expression was slightly excited, but also a bit sad. He didn't let Jiang Chun continue to carry him. Instead, he leaned on his walking stick and walked into the depths of the bamboo forest. Jiang Chun was very curious and followed behind the old village chief. After half an incense stick of time, when they arrived at the depths of the bamboo forest, Jiang Chun realized that the blurry black shadows he saw before were actually tombstones. At this moment, The old village chief stood in front of the tombstones with a sorrowful expression. His turbid eyes were actually filled with tears. "Village chief, these tombstones are?" Jiangchen asked. "They're all my clansmen." The old village chief sighed and said, "My bloodline is almost dead. I'm probably the only one who survived." "They're all dead?" Jiang Chun was surprised. At the same time, he also saw the words on the tombstones. Tomb of the Great Light, Immortal King Murong Chan. Tomb of the Resentment Queen, Immortal King Murong. Looking at the words on the tombstones, Jiang Chun felt terrible. Looking around, all the tombstones had such words. Not only was there a name, there was also a title and cultivation. The people buried here were all immortal kings. They are all immortal kings with titles? Jiang Chun was shocked. There were many immortal kings in the outside world, but there were only 3 immortal kings with titles, and they were the strongest 3 immortal kings. The strength of those 3 immortal kings far surpassed ordinary immortal kings. So they had titles. The title of immortal king was a manifestation of strength. And now, the immortal kings buried here actually all had titles. Then, if these immortal kings were still alive and went to the outside world, then what were the 3 immortal kings? It was a pity that they were all dead. "Village chief, you were also an immortal king with a title in the past?" Jiangchen asked. "You can say so." The village chief nodded and said, "Defeated, everything is gone. Now, I just want to go home. It's just that I don't know if my defeated bloodline can return to the ancestral land." As he spoke, the village chief kowtowed in front of the tombstones one by one. After a long silence, he got up and said, "When we reach the ancestral land, you don't have to go in. That place is not a good place for you. It might even be dangerous." "What about you? Is it dangerous for you?" Jiangchen asked. "The people of my bloodline were all killed by other clansmen in the ancestral land. Do you think it's dangerous for me to return to the ancestral land?" The village chief asked. As soon as these words came out, Jiangchen's heart tightened, and he said, "Since it's dangerous, why do you still want to go back? Fallen leaves return to their roots. That place is my home after all." The village chief sighed. No matter how much resentment his clansmen had, the village chief still wanted to return to the ancestral land before he died and be buried in the ancestral land. Even if he couldn't enter the ancestral land, he could be buried near the ancestral land. Chapter 1488. Home would always be a word that was hard to explain. Thousands of miles of mountains and rivers could be home. Every blade of grass and tree could be home. The entire world could be home. But some people didn't care about the mountains and rivers. They didn't care about the world. They only cared about that small piece of land. That was the beginning and also the final destination. A fallen leaf returning to its roots couldn't escape this principle. The village chief's bloodline, for some reason, left the ancestral land. Everyone in his bloodline died, and he was the only one left. Now his cultivation was gone, and his clansmen were dead. He, who had half a foot in the grave, only wanted to return to the ancestral land. "Village chief, if you go, I'm afraid you'll die." Jiangchen persuaded. "Why are you so stubborn? Don't you have a home? Don't you want to go home?" The village chief asked. Jiangchen fell silent. He shook his head and said, "Then I'll send you home." Then, Jiangchen carried the village chief on his back again and walked towards the ancestral land. On the way, Jiangchen learned the village chief's name. His surname was Murong, and his name was Changtian. And the clan he belonged to was the Murong clan. According to the village chief, the Murong clan was very powerful in this world. Their overall strength could be ranked in the top 3. And at their most glorious time, when the village chief's bloodline was still around, the Murong clan's strength could reach the peak of first place. Jiangchen also couldn't understand why the Murong clan wanted to kill the village chief's bloodline. If the village chief's bloodline was still alive, with so many immortal kings, wouldn't the Murong clan sit firmly on the throne of first place in the overseas immortal graveyard? Powers like this. It makes people unable to understand it, and also makes people obsessed. The village chief sighed. "Village chief, what's the situation in this world?" Jiangchen asked curiously. To the outside world, this place is a group of tombs. That's why it's called the Overseas Immortal Graveyard. But in my eyes, this place isn't a group of tombs. It's a small world. Many people had Jiang Chen's doubts, but no one could explain it clearly. Even the village chief shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. He only knew that if the people in the immortal tomb left this place, they wouldn't be able to live for long, dying sooner or later. Therefore, no matter how high the cultivation of the living beings in the immortal graveyard was, they would not leave this place. After all, not many people in this world were unafraid of death. In the past, there was a person who walked out of the immortal graveyard. He came back and then went out again. I don't know if he's dead or alive. The old village chief said, that person might still be alive. Oh, does village chief know his name? Jiang Chen asked. That is a youngster from the Bai clan, but now it should already be several 100,000 years. I reckon that he is already dead, the old village chief said. As soon as these words were spoken, Jiang Chen's expression changed. He suddenly thought of the white-robed immortal king. Although Jiang Chen did not know the white-robed immortal king's full name, he knew that his surname was Bai. In addition, there were rumors in the world that the white-robed immortal king was the only one who entered the overseas immortal tomb and left with treasures. Thinking about it, could it be that the person the old village chief was talking about was the white-robed immortal king? If that's the case, then the white-robed immortal king must be hiding many secrets. Jiang Chen thought. After walking for 3 days, Jiang Chen carried the old village chief to the edge of a plain. In front of him was a vast expanse. In the deepest part of the plain, he could vaguely see a cluster of buildings. That was the ancestral land of the Murong clan. Put me down. I'll walk the rest of the way myself, the old village chief said, his voice very weak. He was really old. After losing his cultivation, the essence, energy, and spirit in his body had been flowing away. Now he didn't only have one foot in the yellow earth, but both feet were lingering on the edge of the yellow earth. Jiang Chen couldn't bear it. He used his own blood essence to nourish the old village chief. Then he said seriously, Village chief, you taught me the summoning runes, so you can be considered my master in name. I will continue to accompany you on the rest of the way. You are very dangerous. The old village chief sighed. He really didn't want Jiang Chen to accompany him. However, the old village chief also understood his situation. Now he probably wouldn't be able to walk to the ancestral land. He really wanted to see his former home before he died, the place where he was born, the place that he would never forget in his life. Just like that, Jiang Chen continued to carry the old village chief. The two of them slowly walked forward. After walking for more than 10 miles, a tall and sturdy man suddenly appeared in front of them, blocking Jiang Chen's path. The clan chief has ordered that since you are old and the matters of the past have been long ago, you are allowed to return to the ancestral land. The tall and sturdy man's expression was not very good, especially when he looked at the old village chief. The contempt and ridicule in his eyes were not concealed at all. However, when the old village chief heard this, he became excited. He didn't have the strength to walk down from Jiang Chen's back. He could only nod his head and express his thanks. Jiang Chen felt a little bitter in his heart. He didn't say anything and continued to carry the old village chief. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. Let him walk to the ancestral land himself. The tall and sturdy man said in a deep voice, the road back. How can you borrow the hands of others? If you can't walk to the ancestral land, then you will die in this wilderness. When these words came out, Jiang Chen's expression suddenly became cold. After all, anyone could see the old village chief's situation. If he walked back to the ancestral land himself, he would probably die in less than 3 miles. The Murong clan clearly didn't want the old village chief to return. Sigh. In the end, they don't want me to return. The old village chief also sighed. He struggled to walk down from Jiang Chen's back. He gasped for air and said, but I still want to try. I hope the clan chief won't lie to me. As long as you can walk to the ancestral land, you can return to the ancestral land. the tall and sturdy man said. However, when these words came out, everyone understood that the old village chief was going to die in this wilderness. I won't carry him. I will accompany him, Jiang Chun said softly. If he dies, I'm afraid there will be no one to collect his corpse. I want to find a good place for him. Up to you. The tall and sturdy man didn't mind. After all, as long as the old village chief didn't return to the ancestral land, everything could be discussed. Next, the old village chief leaned on his walking stick. A ray of light appeared in his turbid eyes. That was his last hope. He walked slowly and unsteadily. Jiang Chen followed at the side and didn't support him. He knew that this was the old village chief's last hope and also his last persistence. When a man is about to die, his actions will also be strong. Time slowly passed. After a day, the old village chief couldn't walk anymore. He sat down. His whole body was covered in cold sweat. Blood flowed out from his mouth and nose. He was already an oil lamp that had run dry. He turned his head and looked at the road he came from. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. In a day, I haven't even walked 1 mile. Village chief, don't go back. I'll take you away from here. I can help you extend your life. Jiang Chen couldn't bear it anymore. He looked at the tall and sturdy man and asked, if I take him away, will the Murong clan stop me? Chapter 1489. The old village chief would definitely not be able to return to the ancestral land. If he continued walking like this, he was destined to die here. Jiang Chun could not bear it and wanted the old village chief to continue living. However, the burly man directly refused and did not allow Jiang Chun to take the old village chief away. According to the burly man's meaning, since the old village chief had stepped on the path of return, he could not turn back. I will not turn back either. Although the old village chief's eyes were turbid, the ray of determined light was as bright as a lamp in the night. After resting for a moment, he got up and continued walking with the help of his walking stick. Jiang Chun didn't say anything. He was just following them. This walk lasted for 3 days. In these 3 days, the old village chief had been persevering. However, the distance he walked was not much, only a mere 4 li. And to return to the Murong clan's ancestral land, he had to walk at least a dozen li. For any cultivator, a dozen li was a matter of a blink of an eye. Even for a normal mortal, it would take less than a day. But for an old man with a dried-up oil lamp, this dozen li was like the distance between heaven and hell. It was difficult to cross. On the 3rd day, the old village chief could no longer walk. He lay on the ground with blood in the corner of his eyes. He had overdrawn the last of his essence. Now, his eyes were turbid and his life was gradually disappearing. He could no longer walk, nor could he open his eyes. Only the slight trembling of his body proved that he was still alive. It's already like this, and you still won't let him go. Jiang Chun stared at the burly man and said, I want to take him away. You are not allowed. The burly man said softly with a calm expression. He did not care about the old village chief's death at all. To be precise, he came here to witness the old village chief's death. You are all from the same clan. What kind of hatred do you have? His people are all dead. He is the only one left, Jiang Chen said in a low voice. The last person. Why are you not willing to let him go? When did we not let him go? We let him stay in the small village outside the mountain. When did we disturb him? It was he who insisted on coming back. The burly man said, since he wants to come back, he naturally has to pay the price. But this price, he can't bear it. As he spoke, the burly man walked to the old village chief's side, squatted down, and said with a chuckle, You are old, and your cultivation is no longer there. Just rest here. The life of the Murong clan no longer belongs to you. With that said, the burly man slowly raised his hand, ready to send the old village chief on his last journey. The old village chief could not open his eyes and was powerless to resist, but his trembling body told Jiang Chun that he was still struggling. Perhaps it wasn't because he wanted to live, but because he wanted to return to his ancestral land. Even if he died, he had to go home. Get lost. At this moment, Jiang Chun exploded. The flames of fury in his heart were completely ignited. With a furious roar, he struck out with his palm. The inextinguishable flame burned and sent the burly man flying. Immediately, Jiang Chun poured his essence, energy, and spirit into the old village head's body. At the same time, he used the saint healing technique to pull the old village head back from the brink of death. If a true immortal wanted to save a mortal, it was really something that could be done in a matter of minutes. With Jiang Chen's essence blood and the saint healing technique, the old village chief's body changed. His withered skin was growing. His white hair was turning black, and the essence, energy, and spirit in his body were burning vigorously like raging flames. In a short span of 10 breaths, the old village chief, who was originally an oil lamp, had changed greatly from an old man to a middle-aged man. But to the old village chief, the ancestral land was his everything. He had to follow the rules of the ancestral land. "Why do you have to help me?" The old village chief sighed. "Quickly leave. The Moron clan will not let you go." "Leave? Leave what?" Jiang Chun said coldly. "Old village chief, you are also an experienced person. Back then, you should have also stood at the peak of immortality. Now, why can't you see past it? If you want to go home, there is not only one way. You can fight back." When these words came out, the old village chief's expression changed slightly, but he was silent and did not say anything. Not far away, the burly man had already stood up and glared at Jiang Chun. "Boy, you dare to interfere with the matters of the Moron clan? How dare you? Now, destroy your own cultivation and kneel down to apologize, or you will die without a doubt." In the face of the burly man's angry rebuke, Jiang Chun did not care at all. But when he saw the unconcealable killing intent in the burly man's eyes, Jiang Chun also exploded. "Scram!" Jiang Chun shouted angrily, waved his hand, and a sword ray appeared in the sky. The sword ray streaked across the void like a falling comet, bombarding the burly man's body in an instant, immediately cutting him in half and obliterating his soul. "Old village chief, your clansmen were killed by them. Don't you want to avenge them? If you die, your bloodline will be completely cut off. What can't you figure out? That was your home to begin with. You're going home, not to die." Jiang Chun stared at the old village chief, not knowing if he could persuade the old village chief. The old village chief was silent until 10 breaths later. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. There was a trace of bitterness in his voice as he said, "How could I not want it, but my cultivation has been sealed." "It's just a mere seal," Jiang Chun said seriously. His attainments in seals were extraordinary. No matter how strong the seal was, as long as he was given time, he would definitely be able to break it. At this moment, Jiang Chun did not care about the old village chief's thoughts. He grabbed his shoulder and fled into the distance. Not long after Jiang Chun had left, a dreadful energy descended upon this place. An immortal king appeared. When he saw the burly man's corpse, his eyes suddenly turned cold. Then he spat out into the void, "Kill without mercy." When the immortal king of the Moron clan gave the order to kill Jiang Chun and the old village chief, Jiang Chun brought the old village chief to a cave and used the myriad change heavenly lamp to conceal their auras. Then, Jiang Chun began to break the seal in the old village chief's body. "Young man, it's useless. An immortal king seal is not something a true immortal like you can break." The old village chief sighed and said, "You can leave." "So what if it's an immortal king seal? As long as it's a seal, there's a way to break it," Jiang Chun said seriously. After saying that, Jiang Chun ignored the old village chief's feelings and pressed him to the ground, not allowing him to struggle. He began to comprehend the seal in the old village chief's body. As time passed, Jiang Chun's originally tightly furrowed brows gradually relaxed. In the end, he began to form a seal, preparing to break the seal. The old village chief lay on the ground. His originally cold heart now had a trace of warmth. He didn't think that Jiang Chun could break the immortal king's seal, but in the last moments of his life, to have such a young man accompany him and reveal his true feelings, he already felt very satisfied. Chapter 1490. The old village chief did not make a sound. He remained silent and let Jiang Chun do whatever he wanted. He had really given up? After all, he knew how strong the person who placed the seal in his body was. With Jiang Chen's strength as a true immortal, no matter how high his attainments in the seal were, it would be difficult for him to undo it. Of course, this was the old village chief's own thoughts. Meanwhile, as time passed, the eyes of the originally calm and resigned village chief actually began to shine with a bright light. Under Jiang Chen's continuous hand seals, he could feel the seal in his body loosen. An immortal chi appeared in his body. Could it be it really works? The old village chief was shocked, and a trace of hope appeared in his desperate heart. How could he not want to recover his cultivation? How could he not want to avenge his clansmen? Unfortunately, without his cultivation, everything he did was in vain. Previously, it was because his heart had given up that he wanted to return to the ancestral land. If his cultivation recovered, why would he do this? A man was born with an indomitable spirit. Why would he die when he returned home? As time passed, the seal in the old village chief's body continued to weaken, and the immortal chi in his body was recovering. He still did not speak. This time, he was afraid of disturbing Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun also did not speak. He was wholeheartedly trying to undo the seal. Just like this, the two of them remained silent. Time also passed, until 10 days later, a beam of light shot into the sky from here. An immortal life condensed in the air like a 7-colored cloud gathering. Tens of thousands of rays of light scattered down, accompanied by the sound of thunder. It seemed to be announcing to the world that a titled immortal king had returned. Boom! An explosion sounded as if it was going to shatter the land of the immortal world. At the same time, a stalwart man appeared in the air. He was bathed in immortal light and merged with the immortal life. Tens of thousands of laws roared in unison, and tens of thousands of daos twined around him. I, Murong Chantian, am back. At this moment, the old village chief roared. The immortal chi in his body surged. The cultivation that had been sealed for an unknown period of time finally returned. Perhaps it was because he had been sealed for too long and had settled down too much. After his cultivation recovered, the old village chief's cultivation actually increased a lot. He looked into the distance with a cold smile on his face. Then he looked down and a trace of warmth appeared in his cold eyes. Yes, it was this young man who had helped him. It was precisely because of this young man that his bloodline had new hope. Because of a supreme treasure, because of a scroll of summoning runes, he had this opportunity. This is his opportunity, and also my opportunity. The old village chief sighed emotionally. If Jiang Chun hadn't been able to move the chessboard from the start, if Jiang Chun hadn't seen the summoning runes on the fishing rod, then none of this would have happened. Perhaps such a thing was called fate. Perhaps there was something called destiny. Thank you. At this point, the village chief landed next to Jiang Chun. He bowed his head slightly, clasped hands, and said sincerely, "Many thanks. Village chief, there's no need to be so courteous with me. You're a titled immortal king. Why is there a need to be so courteous to a true immortal like me?" Jiang Chun smiled as he scratched his head. After all, this was a titled immortal king. Only the people of the world would bow to him, not him. I don't know where you're from, and I don't know why you're here, but since you've saved me and given my bloodline the last hope, then from now on, what's mine is yours. The village chief said seriously, "Fellow Wakako, if you don't mind, you don't have to call me village chief. Just call me Brother Chantian." Jiang Chun was overjoyed when he heard this. Calling a titled immortal king brother? This was a huge gain. This guy is even stronger than my scumbag father. Perhaps he can stand shoulder to shoulder with the 3 immortal kings. Jiang Chun was overjoyed. He hurriedly nodded and said, "Then, I'll call you Brother Chantian from now on." Both of them were very excited and happy. After a dozen breaths, both of them calmed down. Jiang Chun asked, "Brother Chantian, what do you plan to do next?" "Naturally, I'll return to the ancestral land." Murong Chantian said seriously, "Previously, when I didn't have cultivation, I was willing to die, but they didn't let me return to the ancestral land. Now that my cultivation has recovered, I'll naturally set foot in the ancestral land of Murong. After saying that, Murong Chantian suddenly left. Jiang Chun was stunned. He left just like that? Isn't this too sudden? However, after a dozen breaths, Murong Chantian returned and said softly, I brought some things. I plan to bring them to the ancestral land of Murong. Then, don't you need to adjust your breathing? After all, your cultivation has just recovered, Jiang Chun said worriedly. In the ancestral land of Murong, how many titled immortal kings are there? Just you alone. So what? I alone am enough. Murong Chantian was very confident. Perhaps this was the real Murong Chantian. Let's go. Then, Murong Chantian shouted softly, and his immortal chi swept up Jiang Chun. Then, the two of them stepped on the red clouds and moved forward, crossing the void with one step. When they reappeared, they had already entered the depths of the plain and arrived in front of a magnificent building. Who is it? How dare you stand in the air in the ancestral land of Murong clan? How disrespectful! Presumptuous! In an instant, a few angry shouts came from the ancestral land of Murong clan, and a few immortal primes and immortal monarchs appeared. These were obviously the juniors of Murong clan, and they didn't know Murong Chantian at all. Of course, they could see that Murong Chantian's cultivation was very high, but this was the ancestral land, and he had the support of the entire Murong clan. Even in the face of an immortal king, these immortal primes and immortal monarchs were fearless. When I return, the Murong clan will change hands, Murong Chantian said softly. He glanced at the immortal monarchs and immortal primes and said, Ask your elders to come out and say that I, Murong Chantian, have returned. Murong Chantian? I've never heard of him. Get lost. After all, these were juniors. How could they know the history of Murong clan? Not only did they not return to report, but one of them even activated the array outside the mountain gate, wanting to suppress Murong Chantian. Murong Chantian sneered. Just as he was about to make a move, he saw Jiang Chun chuckle and say, Brother Chantian, there's no need for you to make a move for a mere array. As soon as his voice fell, Jiang Chun waved his hand, and with a shift of his divine thought, the array runes appeared like stars, and in a few breaths' time, the array outside the mountain gate was destroyed, breaking the array in a flash, and forming an array with a single thought. When such a technique was used, it really shocked the immortal primes and immortal monarchs. Even Murong Chantian was stunned for a moment, and he was slightly surprised. It's nothing, Jiang Chun said modestly, but his bright eyes and confident eyes were really not the same as the word modest. Murong Chantian, you still dare to come back? At this moment, in the ancestral land of Murong clan, a thunderous voice came from the 9 heavens. Chapter 1491. His voice was like thunder, and it was like the beating of an ancient war drum, shocking the heavens. In an instant, a violent wind blew, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled, as if the end of the world had arrived. After a few breaths, a man in black strode out of the ancestral land. Wherever he passed, the void cracked and everything withered. At first, he didn't say anything and went straight to Murong Chantian. After looking at each other for a while, the man said, You shouldn't have come back. My surname is Murong, and I was born in the ancestral land. This is my home. Why can't I come back? Murong Chantian raised his eyebrows, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. The man in front of him was called Murong Hao, and he was one of the ancestors of the Murong family. And Murong Hao was one of the culprits of the destruction of Murong Chantian's lineage. Your lineage was defeated, and you have to accept it. Back then, we were kind enough to let you live and let you enjoy your old age. We were already tolerant of you, Murong Hao said coldly. Now, you still want to come back. Are you planning to die here? You killed my clansmen and sealed my cultivation. Is this tolerance? Do you know that sometimes living is worse than dying? My lineage had 9 celestial kings and thousands of clansmen, but they were all killed by you. Is this your tolerance? If this is tolerance, then after today, I will be the only one left in the Murong family. This is my tolerance to you. Murong Changtian's eyes narrowed, and his body surged with immortal qi, and a scroll appeared behind him. On the scroll, there were dense summoning runes. As the runes flickered, it was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were gathering. When Murong Hao saw this, his expression turned cold, and his pupils suddenly shrank. He knew that the unique skill of Murong Changtian's lineage was the summoning runes. You alone aren't enough, Murong Hao said. After all, this is the ancestral land of the Murong family. I'm not the only celestial king in the family. There are 5 more. We have 6 titled celestial kings. What can you do by yourself? Hearing this, Murong Changtian suddenly laughed wildly. 6 titled celestial kings. This kind of foundation was indeed enough to intimidate everyone in the outside world. Even the 3 celestial kings would have to submit. But in this place, in front of Murong Changtian, so what if there were 6 titled celestial kings? Since he was here today, he must have absolute confidence. Today, if the 6 of you commit suicide to atone for your crimes, I can spare your clansmen. Otherwise, I will pay you back in the same way you slaughtered my lineage. Murong Changtian was fearless. The scroll on his back said, Great Elder Rune, Wang. Rumbling sounds rang out one after another. The scroll shone resplendently, and runes coiled around it. Waves of violent winds howled. It was as if an invisible door had been opened behind Murong Changtian, and terrifying waves of immortal force emerged from his back. I thought that you would never be here again. Who would have thought that you would return, Patriarch? At this moment, a pale-faced youth suddenly appeared. There was a bloody hole between his brows, and black blood was dripping out. There was no sign of life on his body, but his immortal energy was extremely terrifying. With his appearance, Murong Hao's expression changed greatly, and he exclaimed, Aren't you dead? I am dead. When you besieged me, my soul was pierced. I am indeed dead. The youth chuckled and said, But don't forget the true meaning of my clan's summoning rune. This is his tombstone. I personally erected it for him. This is my 3rd son. Do you still remember? Murong Changtian said coldly, The enmity of the past must be personally avenged by them. At this moment, Jiang Chun was also shocked. He found it hard to believe that the summoning rune could actually summon a person who had died back then and still retain his consciousness. This was much stronger than an ordinary summoning technique. Just the 2 of you? Although Murong Hao was shocked, he did not have much fear, even if the summoned youth was very strong. So what? In the ancestral land of the Murong clan, including him, there were a total of 6 titled celestial kings. With 6 titled celestial kings in charge, who could go against the heavens? Murong Changtian, if you have any ability, then try it. Today, you will die. Murong Hao raised his eyebrows. Even if you summon all the celestial kings of your clan who died in battle, it will be useless. After all, they are dead. Their strength is not as strong as when they were alive. What's the use? Hearing this, the summoned youth smiled contemptuously. Suddenly, he pointed out a finger. A cold light, like the frost of the 12th lunar month, flashed like lightning and hit Murong Hao. Murong Hao's reaction was naturally fast. He threw out a punch, but his entire fist was shattered by the cold light. Moreover, the cold light did not decrease in momentum and finally pierced through Murong Hao's chest, causing blood to spurt out. This kind of injury was nothing to a titled celestial king. However, at this moment, Murong Hao was extremely shocked in his heart. A dead person who had been summoned actually retained his peak combat strength when he was alive. At this moment, Murong Hao realized that the situation was not good. Come quickly! Murong Hao roared, and a long rainbow suddenly rushed into the sky from the ancestral land of the Murong clan. In an instant, the other 5 titled celestial kings arrived and stood side by side with Murong Hao. All of them stared at Murong Changtian and the youth as if they were facing a great enemy. Murong Changtian, it has been so long. So, what if you come to take revenge now? Your clan is all dead. One of the celestial kings said, "Now, we are willing to accept you. You can return to the clan." Now? Haha, what a joke. When I was a mortal, you let me return to the clan? You would rather let me die on this barren plain than let me step into the ancestral land. Now, you want me to return to the clan? Are you afraid? Morong Changtian laughed wildly. The runes on the scroll behind him rose again. In a few breaths, another titled celestial king was summoned. Like the previous one, this person was also a titled celestial king who had died in battle. He was also from the same clan as Morong Changtian. Morong Changtian, don't go too far. Do you really think that the six of us will be afraid of you? Although the summoning runes are extraordinary, the summoned creatures are all dead. How can a dead creature compete with a living person? Morong Changtian, I advise you to stop. The other titled celestial kings spoke one after another. Although they were afraid, they would not show weakness. Don't worry, I summoned them today only to let them see how I will avenge them. I don't need the help of others to kill the six of you. I alone am enough. Morong Changtian was very confident. As he spoke, he summoned the titled celestial kings from the same clan who had died in battle. At this moment, 9 celestial kings stood behind Morong Changtian. However, Morong Changtian waved his hand and said, "Take care of my little brother. As for the 6 of them, watch me." Chapter 1492. Summoning runes were extraordinary and could summon all kinds of things. However, there was one thing that was necessary, and that was a catalyst. Without a catalyst, it would be difficult to summon anything out of thin air. Previously, when Morong Changtian had left for a while, he had gone to move those tombs over. At this moment, tombstones were erected behind him. The few titled celestial kings who had fallen had appeared and were summoned. However, Morong Changtian did not let them attack. Instead, he ordered them to protect Jiangshun. He planned to fight this battle himself. Morong Changtian, you are really arrogant. Just like before. Back then, your bloodline was defeated because of your arrogance. Morong Hao and the others rebuked angrily. However, when they heard Morong Changtian's words, they were naturally overjoyed. You want to fight us 6 titled celestial kings by yourself? Isn't that courting death? Let's fight. Morong Changtian did not waste time. With a loud shout, he immediately rushed out. Jiangchun was brought far away. After all, a battle between titled celestial kings could take Jiangchun's life with just a little bit of the aftermath. Boom! Boom! At this moment, near the ancestral land of the Morong clan, explosions rang out. Tens of thousands of laws fell, and the void collapsed. There were even 5 elements celestial arts boiling there. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. In just a few breaths, that place had become a void. The entire ancestral land of the Morong clan had collapsed. The other clansmen of the Morong clan were not spared. They were all hit by the aftermath and died one after another. Morong Changtian did not have any pity for all of this. To him, when his bloodline was defeated and the entire bloodline was killed, he had nothing to do with the Morong clan. Now, what he wanted to do was only revenge. Can Brother Changtian do it? Jiangchun muttered. Fighting 6 titled celestial kings alone was not something an ordinary person could do. A titled celestial king was an existence that was only one step away from becoming an immortal emperor. In a battle of this level, not to mention 1 against 6, even 1 against 2 would be very difficult. The power of the Patriarch is not something you can imagine. The Patriarch will not lose. The summoned immortal kings were very confident. Although they were dead, they still had their own consciousness after being summoned by the summoning runes. Back then, why did the Morong clan have internal strife? Jiangchun asked curiously. It's nothing more than a fight for power. Things like power are hard to explain, but some people are obsessed with it. The few of them let out a long sigh. When they were still alive, before the Morong clan's internal strife began, the Morong clan was the first-generation clan in the Immortal Trove. But now, after this battle, the Morong family would only exist in name. Old man Chong Tian, you'll die a horrible death. All of a sudden, an angry roar filled with resentment was heard. Then a ray of light exploded in the void. It was the death of an immortal king. Heaven and earth became dim, blood flowing down like a great river. Heaven's tears appeared, shocking the entire overseas immortal treasury. Oh, did something happen to the Morong clan? Could it be that Chantian is back? Let's go and take a look. The Morong clan is going to change. At this moment, the other sects in the overseas immortal treasury sent people over. Without exception, they were all titled immortal kings. They stood in the distance and watched with solemn expressions. Their eyes were filled with shock. Half a day later, when another titled immortal king died, someone exclaimed, Murong Chantian is half a step into the immortal emperor realm. He is still as powerful as ever. Many titled immortal kings exclaimed. They couldn't help but recall the time when Murong Chantian's lineage was still around. At that time, the Murong clan could be said to be like the sun in the midday sky. Who in the overseas immortal treasury dared to fight against the Murong clan? But speaking of it, it really made people sigh. Such a powerful sect had actually harmed Murong Chantian for the sake of power, and even Murong Chantian's bloodline had been wiped out. What a Murong clan. It's over now. Serves them right. The battle continued and became more and more intense. Someone saw that Murong Chantian was injured, but he healed in the blink of an eye. His combat strength was too terrifying. He was half a step into that supreme realm, not far from the immortal emperor realm. What a pity. A clan of this generation is finally coming to an end. The summoned immortal kings were also filled with emotion. Once upon a time, the strength of the Murong clan made all the living beings in the overseas immortal treasury tremble. But now, it was like fireworks that rose to the highest sky. After the resplendent fireworks, there was only darkness. The flowers withered. Would they bloom again? Perhaps. Murong Chantian was still alive, and everything would be better. A day later, the battle finally ended. Murong Chantian stood proudly between heaven and earth. Beneath his feet, Murong Hao and the others had died, and blood flowed like a river. The entire ancestral land of the Murong clan was destroyed, and all the people in the clan had died. Murong Chantian didn't have any pity, nor did he regret it. He felt that what he did was what he did. Perhaps in the eyes of outsiders, he was very cruel, but he only needed to understand one thing. The revenge of his lineage had been avenged today. Rest in peace, everyone. Murong Chantian sighed softly and looked at the summoned immortal kings. Some were his subordinates, and some were his sons. Clan leader, farewell. Father, don't think about it. In the end, the summoned immortal kings dispersed, and even the tombstones transformed into powder. Murong Chantian wouldn't summon them again. Death was only a form of relief, and he didn't want to disturb them anymore. Congratulations. You've avenged your great enmity. Clan leader Murong's bearing hasn't weakened at all. At this moment, many people in the surroundings congratulated Murong Chantian, and some were even more direct. They were willing to be on good terms with Murong Chantian and help him rebuild the Murong clan. Murong Chantian smiled and didn't answer, and then he pointed at Jiang Chun, who wasn't too far away, and said, I've settled all the worries in my life. It's time for me to charge into the final realm. If you really want to be on good terms with me, then why don't you take care of this little brother of mine? If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today. When they heard this, they couldn't help but turn around with surprise. When they saw Jiang Chun, the group of titled immortal kings were stunned. What's going on? You're an existence that's half a step into the immortal emperor realm, yet you're actually calling a true immortal brother? Moreover, this true immortal is an outsider. What's the meaning of this? Brother Chantian, you're too courteous. Since this person is your brother, then we'll naturally take care of him. Brother Chantian, if you really break through the shackles in the future and become an immortal emperor, then don't forget about us. Some people reacted quickly, but they really felt slightly awkward when a dignified immortal king called a true immortal brother. Chapter 1493. Immortal emperors had been rare since ancient times. In the history of the immortal world, the number of immortal emperors that had appeared could be counted on one hand. Anything related to immortal emperors was a huge matter. Now that Murong Chantian had touched the threshold of immortal emperor, it was possible for him to step into the immortal emperor realm. To everyone, regardless of whether Murong Chantian could become an immortal emperor in the future, it was definitely not a bad thing to rope him in now. He can kill 6 titled immortal kings by himself. Just based on this point, it's worth it for us to rope him in. Murong Chantian has been sealed for so many years. The moment he came out, he showed signs of being invincible. Everyone had their own thoughts. Even those who had enmity with Murong Chantian wanted to curry favor with him at this moment. At this moment, everyone understood that with Murong Chantian's cultivation, no matter what kind of treasure it was, he wouldn't care about it at all. Now, there were only 2 things that Murong Chantian cared about. One was becoming an immortal emperor, and the other was the young man in front of him. If he became an immortal emperor, everyone naturally wouldn't be of much help. However, helping to take care of Jiangchun was an easy task for a group of titled immortal kings. Little brother, why don't you come to my clan as a guest? We'll give you whatever you want for cultivation resources you need. Brother, looking at your young age, you shouldn't have a Tao companion yet, right? My clan is famous for producing beautiful women. Why don't you? At this moment, all the immortal kings began to rope him in with all kinds of reasons and excuses. Jiangchun was a little embarrassed. His old face was slightly red as he looked at Murong Chantian and said, Brother Chantian, I'm just here to gain experience. You don't have to deliberately take care of me. What's there to gain experience in this place? Murong Chantian said snappily. In the eyes of you outsiders, there might be many treasures hidden here. But to us, the treasures you want are all in our hands. If you want any treasures, you have to see if we agree or not. As soon as these words were spoken, Jiangchun instantly understood. The overseas immortal trove had been opened so many times. Why had no one been able to obtain good things here? It was because the treasures in the overseas immortal trove were all in the hands of these top clans and sections. Was it even possible to obtain these treasures from them? She was neither your relative nor your friend, and she had nothing to ask of you. Why should she give you a treasure? Actually, I'm just here for a stroll. Jiangchun smiled and said, just to see the world. Little brother, if you have any needs, just say it. We wouldn't give it to anyone else, but you and Chantian are brothers, so you're also our brothers. Don't treat us as outsiders. Everyone became anxious. This was a good opportunity to rope in Murong Chantian. So how could they let it go so easily? Everyone in the overseas immortal trove knew that although this was a small world, it was actually a cage. There were special rules and orders here, and the living beings here were unable to leave. However, if someone became an immortal emperor, they would be able to break the rules here and bring people out. And now, the person with the last hope of becoming an immortal emperor and breaking the rules here was Murong Chantian. In this way, everyone was willing to rope in Murong Chantian. Little brother, you must have just broken through to the true immortal stage, right? How is the awakening of the 5 elements? You've awakened one, right? My clan has a lot of Wuji stones, and I'll give them all to you. What's the big deal about Wuji stones? My clan has thundercloud stones and even treasures. One of them can awaken the rare thunder attribute power. My sect also has some. There's a raging flame stone. It can help you awaken the fire attribute power. At this moment, everyone threw out their wealth. Although the Wuji stones were precious, after using it, one might not be able to awaken many attributes or even one attribute. But these so-called thundercloud stones and raging flame stones, after using them, would definitely awaken the fire attribute power. Jiangchun didn't care at first, but when he heard these words, his eyes turned green. I've awakened the metal, wood, fire, earth, and light attributes. If I can awaken other attributes, Jiangchun thought in his heart, but he was too embarrassed to say it. After all, Jiangchun either didn't open his mouth, or once he opened his mouth, he would ask for an exorbitant price. He was afraid that if he opened his mouth, this group of people wouldn't be able to accept it. Little brother, this is a rare thundercloud stone. I'll give it to you now. It can help you awaken the thunder attribute power. At this moment, a seemingly young woman walked up and took out a thundercloud stone in front of everyone. However, Jiangchen smiled and shook his head, saying, "Thank you for your kindness, senior, but I've already awakened the water attribute power." "Ah, that's great. I have a raging flame stone here, little brother. Take it." A bald man walked over. His body was full of raging flames, but when facing Jiangchen, he was very gentle. "Uncle, I don't need the raging flame stone," Jiangchen said awkwardly. "I've also awakened the fire attribute power." "What? Dual attributes? That's rare." As expected of Brother Chang Tian's brother, he's indeed extraordinary. The group of titled celestial kings praised, but Jiangchen was cursing in his heart. How could a person who could reach the level of titled celestial king be an ordinary person? Among this group of people, there was only one single attribute, and Jiangchen dared to write his name backwards. "Little brother, I have a holy light divine stone here. It can help you awaken the light attribute power." Another person walked over with a smile on his face. However, Jiangchen shook his head with a smile and said, "I've also awakened the light attribute power." "Thank you for your kindness, senior." When these words came out, the group of people was slightly surprised. 3 attributes? Rare. This is really rare. Many people exclaimed. After all, among the celestial kings present, although there were people with 3 attributes, there were not many. "Then my sharp metal divine stone, what do you think?" A person in a Taoist robe walked over and asked tentatively. I'm sorry. I've also awakened the metal attribute." Jiangchen scratched his head, feeling that if he said this, would it make these celestial kings feel very embarrassed, or even a little inferior. For attributes? Oh my God! I've cultivated for more than 100,000 years, and only when I was in Celestial King did I forcefully awaken 4 attributes. You've just become a true immortal, and you've already awakened 4 attributes? What a monster! Some people were speechless, while others exclaimed repeatedly. "Then what mystic stone?" someone asked tentatively. Although he felt that the probability of a person awakening 5 attributes at the same time was not high, he really did not have the confidence at this moment. I'm really sorry. Jiangchen stammered, as if he was a little shy. However, the group of celestial kings was completely dumbfounded, and their hearts were in chaos. Chapter 1494. The immortal kings present were indeed very embarrassed to have awakened the power of 5 elements. Of course, they were also very envious. He had the power of the 5 great elements. This meant Jiangchen could practice more methods and immortal methods. This also meant that Jiangchen's strength was far stronger than ordinary people. In the later stage, it was not 1 + 1 = 2, but several times more. This old man may be old, but I'm willing to become sworn brothers with little brother. Someone immediately spoke up. At this moment, no one cared about Jiangchen's cultivation level. They only knew that he was extraordinary, a genius with 5 elements. If he grew up, even if he did not become an immortal emperor, he would be invincible among immortal kings. Fellow immortal Chang Tian is indeed extraordinary. The little brother he befriended is actually such a genius. Little brother, do you have any ideas or requests? Just say it, and I will naturally satisfy you. At this moment, the attitude of the immortal kings towards Jiangchen had completely changed. They were not jealous because they were living creatures in the overseas immortal trove, and it would be difficult for them to get out in this lifetime. Therefore, for an outsider, no matter how strong or weak he was, it was not a bad thing for them. It could even be a good thing if Jiangchen became an immortal emperor in the future. If he did not forget them, he would naturally help them and send them out of the overseas immortal trove. "I want to gather all the elements," Jiangchen said weakly. All the elements, in the eyes of ordinary people, were naturally all the 5 elements, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. But at this moment, everyone knew that Jiang Chun was not talking about metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, but the real all elements. We do have enough 5 elements divine stone here to allow you to awaken the remaining 5 elements. Someone said with a frown, but those special attributes, you have awakened the thunder element, and you have also awakened the light element. The other special elements need special divine stones. Someone sighed and said, these divine stones are very rare. My sect does not have them. I have the latter divine stone of darkness. At this moment, a man in a black purple-gold robe walked out and handed a divine stone as black as ink to Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun was overjoyed at the unexpected good news. He did not refuse and immediately accepted it. However, after he crushed the divine darkness stone, Jiang Chun's expression could not help but become strange. This was because after the divine darkness stone was crushed, the darkness attribute energy contained within it had actually dissipated into thin air and did not enter Jiang Chun's body. What's going on? Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. Even the person who gave out the divine darkness stone was dumbfounded. Could it be that this piece of darkness divine stone was fake? Impossible. This is the most valuable treasure of my Black God sect. It can't be fake. The man furrowed his brows and hurriedly explained, afraid that others would think that he was trying to trick Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun was also speechless. He asked weakly, Senior, did you take the wrong one? It's impossible to take the wrong one. The man shook his head. This treasure had always been with him and had never changed hands. How could he have taken the wrong one? At this moment, Murong Chantian opened his mouth and asked with a strange expression, Brother Jiang Chun, have you already awakened the darkness attribute? As soon as these words were spoken, Jiang Chun naturally rejected it at the beginning. How could he not know his own situation? What darkness attribute? However, after a few breaths of time, Jiang Chun's expression also became strange as he recalled the situation when he awakened the darkness attribute previously. At that time, after awakening the light attribute, Jiang Chun stopped awakening and thought that he would not awaken any other attributes. It was also at that time that Jiang Chun stood up and felt muddle-headed, as if he was swallowed by darkness. However, that feeling disappeared in a flash, and Jiang Chun did not think too much about it. At this moment, Jiang Chun hurriedly looked inside his soul. After looking carefully, he discovered that in the pitch-black area at the edge of the depths of his soul, there was actually a divine darkness stone quietly floating up and down. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see it at all. Jiang Chun's old face flushed red. He secretly thought that he had really made a fool of himself this time. He had wasted a precious divine darkness stone. It's fine. Just treat it as a gift from me to Brother Jiang Chun. Although the sect master of the Black God sect's heart was bleeding, he was still willing. After all, this divine darkness stone was used by Jiang Chun, so it could be considered a gift to Jiang Chun. Everyone was watching this favor. Jiang Chun could not run away. Jiang Chun also knew about this. He could not help but look awkwardly at the sect master of the Black God sect and say, Thank you, Senior. What's Senior? It's so distant. Just call me Brother Black. The sect master of the Black God sect said with a smile. He patted Jiang Chun's shoulder and said, I presume little brother hasn't cultivated the darkness cultivation method and immortal technique yet, right? Why don't you come to my Black God sect? I'll teach you the Black God sect's supreme cultivation method and immortal technique. When these words came out, Jiang Chun was naturally moved. However, the other immortal kings were not happy. Such a monstrous person had a chance to become an immortal emperor in the future. How could they let him be roped in by himself? My Sky Motion sect will help you awaken the other attributes of the 5 elements. A graceful woman walked over and directly gave Jiang Chun the 2 divine stones that had not awakened. She said with a charming expression, There are many beauties in my Sky Motion sect. They are much better than the group of bachelors in the Black God sect. Little brother, why don't you think about it carefully? When these words came out, The sect master of the Black God sect was immediately unhappy. His face was already dark, but at this moment, it became even darker. He glared at the sect master of the Sky Motion sect and said in an unfriendly tone, "What is a woman like you doing here? Black God, you're looking for trouble." The sect master of the Sky Motion sect did not give a good expression. The aura on his body suddenly soared, as if he was about to attack. Fortunately, Murong Changtian, who was at the side, spoke in time and stopped the two of them. However, as for how Jiangchun would be distributed, this was a big problem. Brothers and sisters, I haven't stayed in the overseas immortal trove for a long time. I don't know if I will come here again in the future. You don't have to, Jiangchun said weakly. In front of this group of immortal kings, he did not dare to be too presumptuous. However, before he could finish speaking, this group of immortal kings began to quarrel. They knew that Jiangchun might not come to the overseas immortal trove again in the future. However, for them, it was naturally a good thing to be able to rope in someone who had a chance of becoming an emperor. Who cares if you will come in the future? Now, they must rope you in. How about this? You can find some time and allocate your time. No one can accompany him for a period of time. This way, my brother Jiangchen will also owe everyone a favor, Murong Changtian said. When everyone heard this, they looked at each other and sized up each other's combat strength. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, this group of people finally compromised. They knew that in the face of Jiangchun, no one could take it all for themselves. Now, they could only follow Murong Changtian's method. I'll go first. No one has 3 days. The sect master of the Black God sect said, after 3 days, you can change. Okay, it's decided then. In the end, all the immortal kings agreed. Of course, they did not ask whether Jiangchen agreed or not. After all, for this group of immortal kings, whether Jiangchen agreed or not, as long as they agreed, it was fine. Besides, a group of immortal kings would teach you cultivation. How could you not be happy? Chapter 1495. Murong Changtian stayed in the ruins of the Murong clan's ancestral land. He wanted to cultivate in seclusion here and use the power of his clan to receive the chi of heaven and earth. He wanted to break through the shackles and become an immortal emperor. Jiangchen and Murong Changtian said goodbye. The two of them formed a seal with each other. If Jiangchun was in danger, Murong Changtian would sense it. At this moment, Jiangchen glanced at the group of immortal kings beside him and asked weakly, "Didn't we agree that everyone would accompany me for 3 days? Brother Black Deity will accompany me first. He's a member of the demon sect. He's obviously not a good person. We won't be at ease if we let him accompany you alone." "That's right. We have to watch him," the other immortal kings said very seriously. However, they were all immortal kings. At this realm, there was no distinction between immortal and demon. Everyone knew what this group of people was thinking. They were worried that Black Deity would monopolize Jiangchun. Humph! A group of old farts. Black Deity's face was gloomy. When he looked at Jiangchun, he was full of smiles and said, "You're from the outside world, right? Come, I'll take you to the Black Deity sect to take a look. At the same time, I'll teach you the supreme cultivation methods and immortal arts of the Black Deity sect." After saying that, without waiting for anyone to react, Black Deity pulled Jiangchun and disappeared. The group of people became anxious and immediately chased after them. However, by the time they caught up, Jiangchun had already entered the Black Deity sect. Moreover, the Black Deity sect's protective array had already been activated. Even immortal kings would find it difficult to enter. Of course, they could also choose to attack by force. However, once they attacked by force, it would be equivalent to starting a war with the Black Deity sect. This group of immortal kings were not fools. "We'll wait here." 3 days later, hand over little brother Jiangchun. A group of immortal kings were clamoring here, but no one in the Black Deity sect paid any attention to them. At this moment, Jiangchun was brought to the scripture pavilion by the Black Deity. The Black Deity said politely, "Little brother, here are all the cultivation methods and immortal techniques of the Black Deity sect, especially those related to the dark element. You can choose from them. This, Brother Hey, do you have anything better? Jiangchen muttered. Didn't you say you were going to teach me the Black God Sect's highest cultivation method and immortal techniques? The Black God Sect's most powerful techniques and immortal skills are all devilish. I'm afraid you won't be able to handle the devilish chi. Black God explained, demonic cultivators are different from normal cultivators. Once an accident happens, you will lose consciousness and become a walking corpse. Brother is doing this for your own good. However, before the black deity could finish his words, Jiang Qin's body shuddered, and a murderous aura erupted. This time, Black God was dumbfounded. Demonic cultivator? What the hell was that? In front of great fiends. What was a fiend worth? This? Then I'm relieved. Black God was shocked. After all, great fiends were a natural suppression for devilish cultivators. And Jiang Qin had already become a great fiend. Thus, cultivating devilish cultivation was as easy as eating a meal. In the end, Black God imparted the Black God Sect's highest cultivation method, the Black Sky Technique, and the Immortal Technique, the Great Dark Sky, to Jiang Qin. However, he also reminded Jiang Qin that these cultivation methods and immortal techniques could not be imparted to others. Brother Hey, I naturally understand this. This is a forbidden technique of the Black God Sect. How can I impart it to others? Jiang Qin nodded. Next, Black God taught from the side, and Jiang Qin also diligently comprehended the technique. Time slowly passed, and in a flash, 3 days had passed. In 3 days, Jiang Qin had comprehended 30% of the Black Sky Technique, which could be considered as a small success. As for the Great Dark Sky, he did not even look at a single word. After all, 3 days was too tight. Old thing, hand over Jiang Qin. 3 days have passed. At this moment, the outside of the Black God Sect was in an uproar. The various celestial kings clamored, their expressions ugly. It's been more than half an hour. Do you want to take Jiang Qin for yourself? A group of people roared, and some people cursed. In any case, this group of celestial kings did not have any heirs at all. They just wanted to snatch Jiang Qin. A group of celestial kings. What are they doing? It seems like they want someone. Jiang Qin. At this moment, Luo Wang and the others also arrived and just happened to see this scene. One of the disciples of Shura Retreat stepped forward respectfully and asked, Seniors, are you looking for Jiang Qin? That's the person who came in with us. How did he offend you? Facing this person's question, this group of celestial kings did not even look at him. What kind of joke was this? Did you think that you could talk to celestial kings just because you were human? Not everyone was Jiang Qin. This, seniors, if you need any help, we can help, that person continued, not feeling embarrassed at all. Get lost. What the hell? A golden immortal dares to say such words? We are celestial kings. Do we need a golden immortal like you to help us? The celestial kings were enraged. Why don't you take a look at yourself first? This made Luo Wang and the others feel rather embarrassed, but they were also curious and did not leave this place, wanting to watch the show. Jiang Qin, this guy, most likely caused trouble. I think he won't be able to walk out of this overseas immortal trove. Humph, that's for the best. Gu Lu muttered. He really wanted to see Jiang Qin die in front of his eyes. Only then would the anger in his heart dissipate. However, a few breaths later, when Jiang Qin swaggered out, a group of celestial kings licked their faces to greet him. Luo Wang, Gu Lu, and the others were dumbfounded. He saw the group of immortal kings calling Jiang Qin little brother one after another, and Jiang Qin also called these immortal kings elder brother naturally. What's going on? His treatment, everyone was in a mess. This was the first time Jiang Qin had entered the overseas immortal trove, and he was doing so well. He was calling a group of celestial kings brothers. Hey, isn't this Luo Wang and Gu Lu? What's the matter? Did you get anything in the overseas immortal trove? Jiang Qin glanced at Luo Wang and Gu Lu, and there was a hint of mockery in his tone. Oh, little brother, do you know them? The sect leader of the Celestial Motion sect asked. Hearing that, Jiang Qin smiled mockingly and said, I'm not familiar with them. Not familiar? Oh, Forget it if you're not familiar with them. The sect leader of the Celestial Motion sect said softly. Then he made a gesture of invitation and said, Brother Jiang Chun, it's my turn in the next 3 days. Let's go. This time, without waiting for the others to react, the sect leader of the Celestial Motion sect directly led Jiang Chun away from this place. This time, the group of celestial kings was enraged and chased after them with all their might. Everyone, my Celestial Motion sect is not as stingy as the Black Deity sect. You can wait in the Celestial Motion sect for 3 days. After 3 days, Jiang Chun will be returned to you, the sect leader of the Celestial Motion sect said. He did not raise the sect protecting array. The sect leader of the Celestial Motion sect is really generous. Not only is he generous, but he's also good-looking. The Celestial Kings praised. At the same time, they looked at the Black Deity who had followed them and found that his expression was very ugly. Black Deity, look at how generous he is. Unlike you, who locked us out of the sect. Oomph. Facing the ridicule of the crowd, the Black Deity's expression became more and more ugly. After a cold snort, he did not enter the Celestial Motion sect. It seemed that his temper had risen. He just stood outside the Celestial Motion sect and waited for Jiang Chun to come out. Chapter 1496. Luo Wang, Gu Lu, and the others were stunned. A group of immortal kings were fighting over Jiang Chun? Was there a mistake? Luo Wang had been to the overseas immortal treasure trove a few times and knew that there were living beings, sects, and families here. However, the living beings here were very xenophobic. Although they wouldn't make things difficult for them, they wouldn't be nice to them either. But now, Jiang Chun, a first-time visitor, was actually so popular. This is strange. I'm so envious. Everyone muttered and didn't leave. They wanted to see what was going on. Meanwhile, in the Sky Motion sect, the Sky Motion sect was a female sect, including the sect leader. They were all beautiful women. At this moment, Jiang Chun was surrounded by a group of women who were asking about his well-being. Some of the bolder ones even flirted with Jiang Chun from time to time. Even though Jiang Chun had seen many beautiful women, he couldn't withstand such treatment. This was simply a dream-like life. Even the headmaster of the Celestial Motion sect came in person to pour tea for Jiang Chun. When the other disciples of the Sky Motion sect saw their sect leader like this, how could they dare to be negligent? Little brother, do you have a cultivation partner? What do you think of this sister? This little brother is so handsome. Why don't you stay in our Sky Motion sect? Facing a group of women, Jiang Chun really couldn't take it anymore. He looked at the sect leader of the Sky Motion sect and said, Sister, I don't seem to have anything to do here. Little guy, this sister's Sky Motion sect is best at the gentle water technique. Do you want to learn it? The sect leader blinked her beautiful eyes seductively. Jiang Chun knew that the sect leader of the Sky Motion sect was very old, but he was still dazzled by her gaze. He thought to himself, what a monster! Elder sister, Brother Black taught me the black sky formula and the great dark sky. Jiang Chun murmured. He didn't continue speaking. When the Sky Travel sect leader heard that, how could he not know what Jiang Chun was thinking? What a great old black. He even imparted the Black Divinity sect's supreme methods and immortal methods to him. If I don't impart them to him, won't I lose face? The Heavenly Conduct sect master thought to himself. Then he smiled and handed a jade slip to Jiang Chun. These are the supreme techniques and immortal techniques of the Sky Motion sect, the Blue Sea Marsh, and the Spirit Locking Talisman. This is much better than what Old Black gave you. From today onwards, you're my younger brother. Of course, I have to treat you better. After saying that, Tian Xingzong deliberately sat beside Jiang Chun. Her graceful figure and charming eyes almost made Jiang Chun faint. In the surroundings, when the immortal kings saw this, they also raised their heads to the sky, afraid that their noses would bleed. I'll go meditate for a bit. Jiang Chun couldn't take it anymore. He got up and ran off. This made the group of disciples of the Sky Motion sect laugh nonstop. They secretly thought that this little brother was really interesting. Sect Master Tian, your methods, won't you seduce little brother Jiang Chun away? You have to leave us some opportunities. You can't monopolize such a monstrous talent who has a chance of becoming an immortal emperor. In the surroundings, some immortal kings reminded her, their hearts somewhat flustered. As the saying goes, even heroes have a weakness for the charms of beautiful women. They were really worried that Jiangchen would fall for her. However, they didn't know that none of Jiangchen's female disciples were inferior to sect Master Tian. Jiangchen, who was used to seeing beautiful women, was still resistant to sect Master Tian's charm. You old farts, don't interfere in my matters. Sect Master Tian wasn't charming in front of others. She was very valiant. Old Black outside the door has always been thinking about you. How many years has it been? Why haven't you agreed to Old Black? That's right. Look at how anxious Old Black is. He's standing outside the door, not knowing whether to enter or not. The group of people joked. Sect Master Tian spat and rolled her eyes. She shouted outside the Sky Motion sect. Aren't you tired from standing? Why don't you come in and sit? Coming. The black deity wanted to save face. He was waiting for the Sky Motion sect master to say this. As soon as he finished speaking, the black deity walked in. At this moment, Jiangchen found a beautiful place in the Sky Motion sect and began to comprehend the Azure Sea Swamp and the spirit-locking talisman. Jiangchen's talent had always been at the level of a monstrous talent. His comprehension was also very high. In just 3 days, he had more or less comprehended the Azure Sea Swamp. Even the spirit-locking talisman was somewhat accomplished. It was also on this day that Jiangchen's time was up. It was time to go to the other immortal kings. In the following days, Jiangchen lived very comfortably and contentedly. The various immortal kings were all guiding him, imparting supreme cultivation techniques and immortal techniques. This allowed Jiangchen to have suitable cultivation techniques and immortal techniques for each of his major attributes. Just like that, 10 days later, on this day, he followed the last immortal king to his sect, the Heart Sword sect. This was the only sword cultivator sect in the overseas immortal trove. Little brother, you have already awakened the 5 elements, and you have almost awakened the special elements. I'm a sword cultivator, and I don't have anything to teach you, the immortal king said with a bitter smile. He had asked Jiangchen to come to the sect as a guest just to win Jiangchen over, and also to win over Murong Chantian. I am not a sword cultivator. Jiangchen also sighed. Although he had a dream of traveling the world with a sword, he didn't have a sword seed in his body. Without a sword seed, no matter how high your talent was, you wouldn't be able to step on the path of a sword cultivator. Little brother, do you want to learn the sword? The Heart Sword sect master asked. He blinked his bright old eyes and said, Sword cultivator, how cool is that? With a sword in hand, the world is mine. Compared to those 5 elements and special attributes, I have a sword that can break everything. The Heart Sword sect master rambled on, as if he was trying to brainwash Jiangchen. Jiangchen was more and more tempted. He couldn't help but think of his own 10,000 change heavenly slash. If he became a sword cultivator, wouldn't the power of his 10,000 change heavenly slash double? But the key was, he didn't have a sword seed. The sword seed was like the elemental power. When one became a true immortal, there was a slight chance of condensing it. However, in hundreds of thousands or even millions of people, it was difficult for one person to condense a sword seed. Without a sword seed, he wanted to become a sword cultivator? It was simply a dream. Little brother, as long as you are willing, I have a way to make you a sword cultivator. The Heart Sword sect master narrowed his eyes. Looking at his expression, Jiangchen seemed to understand. You said so much just to pave the way. You old bastard, you were trying to trick me into becoming a sword cultivator? Brother, you have a way? Jiangchen asked expectantly. Of course. The Heart Sword sect master said, we have a sword tomb here that opens every once in a while. When the time comes, a sword seed might be born inside. As long as you get a sword seed, you can become a sword cultivator. The Heart Sword sect master couldn't help but sigh. But according to the ancestors' rules, the creatures in the overseas immortal treasure can't enter. Only outsiders can enter. Oh, Jiangchen murmured. Then he said, but I don't think I'll be able to beat the others. Otherwise, or else. The Heart Sword sect leader blinked his eyes, a little confused. Chapter 1497. Or else. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect was confused. How could he guess what Jiang Chun was thinking? Jiang Chun said seriously, "Brother, you've seen my cultivation. Although I'm an outsider and can enter the sword tomb, I might not be able to snatch it from others." So? The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect asked, "So, why don't you let the others go in? When they get the sword seed, you can help me get it?" Jiang Chun said calmly, as if he was talking about something normal. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect also widened his eyes. This kind of robbery, when you say it out loud, it's really normal. That's not good, right? I'm the sect leader of the Heart Sword sect. Do I need to steal from those juniors? The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect muttered. As a celestial king, how could he let go of his dignity? However, Jiang Chun shrugged nonchalantly. I don't have a sword seed, so I can't cultivate the sword. And you only know how to cultivate the sword. It seems like I won't get anything from you. Then Jiang Chun shook his head. He turned around helplessly, as if it was a pity. He was about to leave. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect was anxious. The other celestial kings have already given you benefits and tried to get on your good side. Why are you leaving now that you're here? Isn't it just a sword seed? Although I can't do it, there are plenty of people in the Heart Sword sect. Little brother, it's just a sword seed. I'll get someone to help you snatch it. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect hurriedly pulled Jiang Chun back. The cultivation of the outsiders is at most a golden immortal. It's just a matter of minutes to snatch it from them. The people who came in are all geniuses from the Celestial Mountains. They have a lot of treasures on them. Look at how poor I am, Jiang Chun said weakly. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect was completely confused. What? It's not enough to help you snatch the sword seed? You want me to help you snatch their treasures? But on second thought, since he had already snatched it, what was the point of missing that little thing? After thinking about it, the sect leader of the Heart Sword sect agreed and sent people to spread the news that the sword tomb was about to open. Sure enough, in a short day, Luo Wang and the others rushed over. All of them stood outside the sword mound, waiting for it to open. Jiang Chun and the head of the Heart Sword sect stood in front of the main hall of the sect. They looked at the sword mound in the distance with smiles on their faces. Of course, Jiang Chun was smiling from the bottom of his heart. He was indeed happy, but the Heart Sword sect leader smiled bitterly. The dignified Heart Sword sect, the only sword cultivation sect in the overseas immortal trove, was now helping Jiang Chun snatch those juniors. If news of this were to spread, the Black Deity sect would definitely laugh their heads off. Little brother, I'll help you with this, but you can't tell anyone. The face of my Heart Sword sect. The Heart Sword sect's sect leader muttered. Brother, don't worry. I'm very tight-lipped. Jiang Chun said seriously. Not long after, the sword tomb opened. Luo Wang and the others rushed in. A group of people working for me. I hope they can get the sword seed. Jiang Chun muttered. Jiang Chun spent the rest of the time leisurely. He chatted with the Heart Sword sect leader and drank tea while waiting for Luo Wang and the others to come out. During this time, Black Deity and sect leader Tian came and brought over many cultivation resources. Jiang Chun accepted them with a smile and promised them that he would put in a good word for them in front of Murong Chantian. Brother Jiang Chun, since you're from the outside world, have you heard of someone with the surname Bai? Black Deity suddenly asked. A long time ago, someone with the surname Bai left this place. Not only did he not die, he even came back. There is someone with the surname Bai, and he's a celestial king, Jiang Chun said, but I don't know his name. Celestial king? Surname Bai? Sect leader Tian frowned and asked, is he good at divination? Jiang Chun immediately nodded. He was shocked and said, how do you know? He's now one of the 3 celestial kings in the outside world, and he's also the pavilion master of the Heaven's Secret Pavilion. As expected, he must have found a way, Black Deity said in a deep voice. Among the living beings in the sea immortal trove, the only one who can survive outside is him. Why do the living beings in the sea immortal trove die after leaving? Jiangchen asked in confusion. Everyone couldn't help but sigh when they heard this, as if it made them think of a sad thing. After a few breaths, sect leader Tian opened his mouth and explained, a long time ago, this place was a sect. This small world is the sect's mountain gate. However, due to a great change, the sect was defeated and the entire mountain gate was sealed and cursed. Many eras had passed since then. Although there were still living beings here, and some people could become celestial kings, the power of the curse could not be broken. If it weren't for that battle, we wouldn't have fallen to such a state, Black Deity said in a deep voice. Speaking of the past, it was hard to forget. Back then, the sect leader of this sect was a domineering woman with outstanding charm and peerless elegance. However, for some unknown reason, such a woman suddenly walked out of the sect one day and found a cultivation partner in the outside world. After that, she rarely came back. It was said that she had a son in the outside world. Then, it was said that the woman disappeared and entered an unknown area of the celestial realm. From then on, there was no news of her. It was also because of that woman's disappearance that the sect was defeated and became the sea immortal trove in the eyes of the world. That woman was the most promising person to become a celestial emperor. However, love is difficult to understand. In the end, she disappeared. Sect leader Tian sighed. Jiang Chun sighed with emotion. She was such a beautiful woman. Who on earth could make her fall in love with him? Why did she enter an unknown area of the celestial realm? Is it only when one becomes a celestial emperor that you can be released? Jiangchen asked. Only a celestial emperor, Black Deity said. The person who sealed and cursed this place was a celestial emperor. When I become a celestial emperor, I'm afraid it will take a long time. Jiangchen smiled bitterly. Moreover, I have many enemies outside. I don't know if there will be any accidents in the future. Oh, so what? Although we are restricted, we can still go out temporarily. If you have any trouble in the outside world, tell us through the mark. We will definitely protect you. In the end, the group exchanged marks with Jiangchun. It was like a voice transmission from 1,000 miles away. As long as Jiangchun had a thought in his mind, they would be able to sense it. Thank you, brothers and sisters, Jiangchun thanked them. A few days later, the sword tomb opened again. Luo Wang and the others rushed out. However, before they could leave, the sect leader of the Heart Sword sect had already sent out celestial venerables to take down Luo Wang and the others. After searching for a while, not only did they really get the sword seed, but they also took away all the treasures on Luo Wang and the others. Chapter 1498. Luo Wang and the others were crying miserably. Not only were the things they risked their lives to snatch in the sword tomb taken away, even the treasures on their bodies were taken away. Who could they find a reason with? This shouldn't be. In the past, the creatures in the overseas immortal trove wouldn't attack us. What's going on this time? It's really strange. Not only was everyone's heart bleeding, they were also extremely puzzled. At this moment, Jiang Chen kept all the treasures in his arms and smiled widely. With these treasures, even if he didn't have a sect to nurture him in the future, he would be able to advance triumphantly. But thinking about it, there was still a white-robed immortal king waiting for him outside. Jiang Chen's face turned a little ugly. Little brother, now that you have a sword seed, I'll call you Sword Cultivator. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect said as he brought Jiang Chun to a cultivation room and began to give him pointers. Heart Sword sect. Use the heart to control the sword. Use the spirit to nourish the sword. And use the heart and spirit as one to form a sword of heaven. The introductory cultivation method of the Heart Sword sect was very special. It didn't cultivate the physical body, but the mental strength. As the saying goes, use the heart to control the sword. And the so-called heart was the mental strength. If the mental strength was strong enough, one could control the sword for an endless distance and behead the enemy from 1,000 miles away. My mental strength, cough cough. Jiang Chun was embarrassed. Previously, it was because his mental strength was not good enough that the rankings were messed up. Now, the first step of sword cultivation was to use mental strength again. Little brother, don't worry. I have a complete set of cultivation methods that are enough to let you step into the ranks of sword cultivators. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect said. Then the headmaster of the Heart Sword sect gave him guidance patiently. Jiang Chen also asked for guidance humbly. Everything was going well. 3 days later, Jiang Chen could be considered to have made some progress. His mental strength had increased by a lot, and he had a new understanding of sword arts and sword Dao. I've been to all the sects and clans of the Immortal Kings. Next, it should be my free time, Jiang Chen said, but there's nothing fun in this overseas immortal trove. There's a place that's not bad. It was once the location of a sect established by that woman. Now it's in ruins. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect said, It's already in ruins. What's the point of going there? Jiang Chen said softly. Although that place has been reduced to ruins, there is still a tablet with some words that even we can't understand carved on it. Heart Sword sect leader said, Since you have nothing to do, I'll go take a look with you. Jiang Chen thought for a moment. Anyway, he had gained a lot from this trip to the overseas immortal trove. Now that he had nothing to do, he might as well go and have a look. Then, the Heart Sword sect leader brought Jiang Chen to a ruin. As far as the eye could see, the broken wall had fallen to the ground, breaking apart inch by inch. There were also some dark red bloodstains that still carried divine light. It was obvious that they were left behind by some people with profound cultivation before they died. There were corpses all over the ground. Some were broken, while others were intact. Why didn't anyone come to collect the corpse? Jiang Chen asked curiously. You can't enter these ruins. The remnants of the battle have yet to dissipate. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect said. It said that it's the aftermath left behind by the immortal emperor. Ordinary people will either die or be injured if they enter. Even immortal kings don't dare to casually enter. Is the immortal emperor that strong? How many eras did the aftermath of the battle last? Jiang Chen exclaimed. Immortal king and immortal emperor are only one word apart, but the difference in strength between the two is like heaven and earth. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect sighed. If I become an immortal emperor one day, I will definitely let sword cultivation shine in the world. However, there were not many sword cultivators in the world, but there were also quite a few. However, there was no one who could truly cultivate sword cultivation to the immortal emperor realm. Since ancient times, there were many sword cultivators. Some were so powerful that they could suppress immortal kings of their generation. But in the end, they were still unable to step into the immortal emperor realm. The immortal emperor realm was like a dream realm. People only knew that it existed, but they didn't know how to step into it. Let's not talk about this. Look at this stone tablet. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect brought Jiang Chen to the other side of the ruins. This place was very clean. There were no ruins or bones. There was only a stone tablet that was about the height of a person standing there. The stone tablet seemed to be newly cast. It was sparkling and translucent, flashing with multicolored light. The surface was also very neat, without any damage. However, according to the sect leader of the Heart Sword sect, this stone tablet only appeared after the sect was destroyed. It said that it seems like that woman came back. She should have set up this stone tablet herself, the sect leader of the Heart Sword sect said. However, this was also a legend. Back then, no one saw who set up this tombstone. Even you immortal kings can't understand the words. How can I understand them? Jiang Chen sighed and raised his head to look at the stone tablet. Jiang Chen's expression changed drastically as soon as he took a look. The originally cryptic ancient words seemed to have come alive at this moment. They turned into streaks of information and entered Jiang Chen's mind. In an instant, a woman's voice sounded. My child, I will wait for you in the wilderness. A simple sentence, but it made Jiang Chen's heart tremble. What did that mean? My child? At this moment, Jiang Chen thought of many things, especially his unscrupulous father. This could it be my mother? Jiang Chen was stunned. Could there be such a coincidence in this world? Since Jiang Chen was born, his mother had not been around. Wancheng had once told Jiang Chun that his mother had died of a serious illness. But now, the ancient words on this stone tablet, no one has been able to understand them since ancient times? Jiang Chun asked. No one can understand it. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect nodded. Regarding this, Jiang Chun frowned. It would be strange if these ancient words could be understood. This was clearly a memory that had been left behind using an extremely profound method. This was a memory inheritance. Ordinary people naturally couldn't understand it. Then, why could Jiang Chun understand it? No. To be more precise, why could Jiang Chun hear it? It seems like I have to go back and ask my father what's going on, Jiang Chun thought. At the same time, Jiang Chun also thought of the white robe immortal king. That guy insisted on him coming to the immortal trove. Could it be for this? Brother, the woman you're talking about, is she really that powerful? Jiang Chun asked. She's more than powerful. When she was around, even the immortal emperor didn't dare to casually walk around in this world. The sect leader of the Heart Sword sect said seriously, that's true invincibility. A woman, unifying the great Tao and the heavens, looking down on all living things in the world. As he spoke, the sect leader of the Heart Sword sect took out a portrait and said, we are all branches of that sect. There's a portrait of that woman in the sect. Look, it's such a peerless beauty. As he spoke, the expression of the Heart Sword sect leader became strange. He looked at the woman in the portrait and then at Jiang Chun. He subconsciously muttered, it's somewhat similar that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.